morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids. Damn fam, will you be my Valentine?
Oh, right, it's that. It's Hallmark Holiday Day.
Yes, happy VD, everyone.
If
What?
you're old enough to know, VD is
What?
what we used to say for somebody who had an STI, venereal disease. You
What?
have VD.
What did I say? Happy.
If you're old enough to know, it's not really something anybody says anymore.
Damn fam, and of course you know, if you've been with us for a while, that today it is.
I would cuddle you so hard.
I would cuddle you so hard, T-shirt day. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone who is celebrating and observing. Remember, self-love is also love. So just saying.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I understand that, it's better to play with the band than to play with yourself, but self-love is... What?
I didn't say anything. Didn't say anything.
I got that line from Grease too.
Terrible yet funny film.
Oh my God. No, seriously, kids and cubs, it's Love Day here at the Beaver Lodge. So, we have a juicy show for you today. So pucker up. Welcome to the Daily Beaver Morning Show. 100% Canadian. Because that's in now. Haha, I like it. All right. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns EM. Hey, Mr. Beaver, hey. Oh, and today, recording day, of course, Valentine's Day, right? February 14th, 2025. And it's, I don't care what it is outside. It's a day for love. So it's a good day here at the Beaver Lodge. It's going to be a great day here at the Beaver Lodge. Like I said, I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns him. Hey, Mr. Beaver, hey. And with me is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly, in pink. So I'm hoping that signifies also a good mood. A big thank you goes to our podcast's founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries, and from Corvid Moon Publishing, I should say, yes, and CanadianTarot.com, who have been showing us the love for 4.5, nearly, almost four full seasons now, because our birthday is at the end of April. So that's a lot of love. So thank you so much. And it's, of course, mutual, and it's love, and it's real. And of course, damn fam. Come on. Bring it in. Let's just give you a big squeeze there. Right? Good love there. And of course, you, my friend.
Yeah, I'm just...
Lots of love for you, though.
Cool. Love you, too. I don't give a damn about this day, number one. And number two, I've been up since 2:30. Lola, I felt her, like, she crawled into bed with me at one point. I don't know what time it was because I went to bed at 9:30 last night. I was very tired. And I just, oh, Lola's here. And she got up and walked to the end of my bed and proceeded to empty the contents of her stomach on my feet.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, my feet were under the covers, but so I'm like, okay. And she got up and went right into her house because she felt bad about it. So I'm like, okay, I'll get up and clean this up. And yeah. And then went and brought her back to bed and cuddled with her to let her know everything was okay and she's fine and don't worry about it. These things happen. And then, yeah, I could not get back to sleep until about 5:30. I fell asleep for 30 minutes. So, yeah, I'm kind of, when you're up for that long, you should be wide awake, except it's really interrupted my sleep pattern. So I'm not awake.
Yep.
A little cynical at the moment, and not because of that, but because I'm so tired. I don't like it's happened. It happens. She's a dog. Dogs, I don't get upset with her. It's like, it happened. I'll fix it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. But yeah, it's the old noggin is in need of a couple more Zeds.
Yeah. I am, as a chronic insomniac, again, I totally empathize. See a Kit Tavi here going, oh my, Douglas, at least you don't have to squeeze hard for the juice. The amount of news makes Niagara look dry. Oh, my words. I love the damn fam. That's right. Okay, so today we have something special for you, but before we get into it, just for a bit, there was one little thing yesterday that with regard to Anita Poliev, because she came out and she decided, I'm guessing that Pierre's attacks on Mark Carney, or what the party was trying to do to try and hobble Mark Carney, wasn't worth it. So they sent out Evita. Because Evita gets stuff done. Right. So she went there and she was all like, oh, I'm not going to apologize for this and that and all that kind of stuff. Well, couple of things are starting to come out now, because time does its thing and people start researching things or people start remembering stuff. So we have MP Ryan Turnbull, who represents Whitby for the Liberals, that posted something that says, at a press conference announcing Carney would be leaving to be the next governor of the Bank of England, Finance Minister Jim Flaherty said that Carney's advice as Bank of Canada governor had, quote, kept Canada strong, pointing out that we had the best record for fiscal stability in the G7. November 26, 2012, CBC.
Yeah, well, it's from Anita Poliev, whatever. Taking credit for the achievements of the Harper government is one thing, but claiming the legacy of a man who has since passed, who cannot defend himself or set the record straight, is beyond disgraceful. The credit belongs to Jim Flaherty. And Christopher Chisholm Potier responded to her.
That's the one. That's
please. I was there, and Carney played a big role. Flaherty and Harper provided the political leadership that was key, but Carney was on deck with insight and smart monetary policy. Trying to erase that for partisan reasons is, well, beyond disgraceful, to match your hyperbole. And from Mark Garretson, our friend and your MP, Jim Flaherty's former chief of staff calls out Poliev's wife for trying to diminish the role of Carney during the 2008 financial crisis, and it is mic drop worthy. So,
and then,
so Jim Flaherty's chief of staff.
Yeah, it gets better.
Oh.
Dimitri Soudas.
Oh.
Remember that name?
Yes.
I believe he was Harper's chief of staff. Wasn't he? At some point?
I believe.
Yes. You're so right, Chisholm. Mr. Carney determined monetary policy. During both the 2008 financial crisis and the COVID-19 pandemic, the Bank of Canada implemented the same monetary policy, lowering interest rates and ensuring liquidity. But the key variable was fiscal policy, which is determined by the government and executed by the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. I was there as well, by the way. I was in the meetings too.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I am guessing that he, I'm not sure if this was meant snarky, or if this was meant as supported. But yes, I mean, given that, because here Dimitri Soudas is saying, yes, well, the government did play a role, and Chisholm was saying, yes, and Carney did play a role. Says, yes, you all played a role. That's how the system works.
Yes. Yeah, it's called teamwork.
Right. Fiscal policy is determined by the government. Monetary policy is determined by the bank. Hello. Nobody's taking credit away from Jim Flaherty by highlighting that which Mark Carney contributed on the monetary policy side to make it work. Just like 30 years from now, nobody is going to be criticizing Tiff Macklem. If we praise Tiff Macklem for what he did to make sure that we made the soft landing this time, it's not a criticism of what the Liberals did. Because the Liberals did the fiscal policy side that allowed the monetary policy side to do what it did, and both of them together engineered the mythical soft landing that everybody I've heard all my life that we're aiming for and have never achieved, and this time, in the worst economic crisis in my lifetime, we've actually magically achieved it under the current government and the current governor of the Bank of Canada. I have to say, Governor of the Bank of Canada now. Before I didn't have to add that. But because of some sharks staying down south, we do. So just a little thing, but we're not going to talk about him that much today because today's a day for love, and he's not about that. So just putting that little thing there, right? Giving credit to Mark Carney for what he contributed does not take away from what Jim Flaherty or Stephen Harper did at the time.
Not at all. Not in the least.
And even though, let's remember, okay, because governments don't take all the advice. I was hearing this thing of Phil Krugman, I think it is, his name is, or Paul Krugman, the big guy from the United States. Yeah, Paul Krugman. Yeah, he was doing an interview and he was talking about it and says, so, I mean, you've been advising everybody. He says, I think in my entire career of advising governments and whatnot, somebody took my advice once. Paul Krugman. So the Conservatives are trying to make you believe that Mark Carney wrote the entire policy. Probably the most consulted person on the planet for this type of thing says people took his advice that he knows of once. Okay? Carney did not write the policy. No. So they're stretching real hard here. So, right? It's giving credit to someone for what it is that they did does not remove anything from whatever anybody else did. If you're talking about, it's one of those things again. So, if I talk about myself, well, to this project I did this. Well, what did everybody else do? You're taking all the credit. No, I'm taking credit for what I contributed.
Correct.
I never said I did it alone. Right. So this is proof of how much their opposition research has come up empty, because they are. If you found something, you use it and you spin it, but now they are trying to manufacture, right? The thing at Erskine Smith. Oh, he's a creepy, and oh, he's a radical drug advocate. The shoes that were $2,000, it turns out, are not even the same shoes. No. They're back to photoshopping again, by the way. They got this thing of Pierre Polyev doing this blue collar stop thing like this. He's got hands with a wrench like this, and you see his biceps are just rippling like crazy.
Well, I don't know if that was a part of the party that did that. I think that was an individual.
Yeah, but no, the party didn't do it, but Arnold Gerson is sharing it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and now this, right? Anida comes in sort of like this. I can't believe that he's taking credit on behalf of, no, like there was absolutely nothing in the record. He shared credit the entire time, has always shared credit. There's nobody that's been in that circle that's been alive around that time that says, oh yeah, I remember he was a dick about that. It's like, it's just, they're just trying to manufacture stuff. So they've got nothing. They've got nothing. So that should give you the lens through which to look at the next attempts to try and steal the narrative or frame someone or define someone. Right? They are in desperation mode.
They're panicking. Look, the waters have been chummed. The sharks are circling. They know they're about to get eaten alive. They know it. It's they look. They base their whole personality on hating Trudeau And now that he stepped down, they have nothing to hate. So they're going to try and besmirch and paint Mark Carney in a bad light, but they can't because, again, he, like David Johnston, has an impeccable record. Remember, the cons will use you until they don't need you. Then they will stab you in the back, throw you under the bus, and back up over you. And they've done it. They did it to Johnston. They're doing it to Carney. They'll do it to the next person that they find. Once they don't need you any longer, that's it. You're done. And if you want to sit here and tell me I'm wrong, then prove it to me. But you can't, because I'm right. Because evidence is widely available all over the internet.
Well, and the other thing that's going on
too, for that matter.
Yeah. But the other thing that's going on now is that it's the entire conservative brand, right? You got what Trump is doing in the United States. That has definitely created a national unity moment here. I mean, again, there's more hockey games if you're watching the Canada, the Four Nations thing.
I haven't seen any of them, but I heard last night they said please don't boo the anthem, and somebody yelled out, "Fuck that."
Well, yeah,
and
that.
Booed him.
I guess, and then the amount of cheering for the old Canada. Just
in Montreal, and it was loud.
Yes.
Yeah.
Something they've pushed a button. Yeah. It's like I said a couple of weeks ago. It's like you have no idea the damage you have done to yourselves with this, right? And now the latest target now is India, which is really interesting because Donald Trump met with Modi yesterday, and after that, just talking about reciprocal tariffs, and he goes, whatever India charges, we charge them. So frankly, it no longer matters to us that much what they charge. It's like, and Canada is saying the same thing. You're almost there, Donald. You're almost there. If India is going to has been charging tariffs to you on certain things, and you're going to charge what they charge, so therefore it doesn't matter what it is they charge. And if you charge tariffs on us and we charge what you charge, then therefore it doesn't matter what you charge. Right, Donald? He's almost there. He's almost figured it out. He's figured it out from one side. Now he just has to learn that it's a two-way street. He's almost there. Hey.
Close.
Close. So close. So close. So you got what that's going on there. And then you have Doug Ford, which is still not showing up in the damn polls, and I don't know what it's going to take. But we just saw 13 premiers together. We saw him in real time, side by side. Compare Doug Ford to Susan Holt, to Wab Kinew, to François Legault, to David Eby. To Andrew Fury. Dang, keep on mixing them two up. Andrew Fury. Andrew, Newfoundland. Anthony, that shit stain from Toronto, which keeps on trying to run for every election there is to get elected somehow. It's like but sometimes you need to clue in that the people just don't want you, dude. Just an aside. Raj Pillai, Premier of Yukon, PJ Agagok, when Pierre Poilievre went north. I mean, we're seeing our premiers here. Well, at least the ones that are not conservative, standing up and doing the job of being premier. Yes. And then even among the conservative premiers, even though she's gaslighting us to no end, Danielle Smith can string a sentence together. The bullshit that she put out the other day was bullshit, but at least it was a narrative. It was a story that in itself, in its own little world, held. When you bring it back here to Earth 1, it's not tethered to anything that we can see observable reality, but as its own little component, it held. She worked very hard at it. She put some effort into that lie. She worked at it. She practiced it in front of a mirror a couple of times.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she had several days. So, but Doug Ford, it's just like, well, we gave it 100%, and I really need to build these homes and talk tough because I got to stand up and protect Ontario. And well, can you imagine the other guy doing it? And
Well,
who did you meet with, Premier Ford? Oh, I can't say. With they were top level staffers.
Well, if you need more proof, that Donald Trump wants to be a mob boss and behaves like one, if you don't understand his mentality, his behavior, his mannerisms, the way he's talking, the way he comports himself, and the things he said, well,
I
watch
really
this.
don't want to.
Going with Canada, there was obviously a delay in implementing those tariffs.
I spoke to Governor Trudeau on numerous occasions, and we'll see what happens. But it just sets up so good for them. Look, the people would pay much less tax than they're paying right now. They'd have perfect military protection. They don't have any military protection because and you take a look at what's going on out there. You have Russian ships, you have China ships, you have Chinese ships, you have a lot of ships out there, and people are in danger. This is a different world today.
He's playing mob boss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is. I mean, that's fine. I didn't want to give him.
We're not focusing on it, but
no. I didn't want to give him any of that attention. Meanwhile, so Ford flopped, and you can tell that he's in panic mode because somewhere, somehow, it turned out that he started musing about bringing back the death penalty.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, that they're now saying it was a joke in poor taste, because you're right, whenever they get caught, it's always a joke. Can't you take a joke, man? No, it was only a joke. Oh, it was locker room talk. So this is Doug Ford's version of locker room talk. It was just a poor taste joke, said this spokesperson. Yeah. Progressive Conservative leader Doug Ford does not support the death penalty, a spokesperson said in a statement Thursday night. The statement was in response to a story by the Toronto Star, which reported that Ford said, quote, "I send them right to Sparky," while talking about home invaders during a speech to the London Police Services Gala on January 29th. The newspaper said it obtained a recording of the speech. The Premier made a poor taste joke out of frustration for the many people affected by violent criminals out on our streets because of the federal government's broken bail system and soft on crime policies, spokesperson Grace Lee said in the statement. He's the fucking Premier. He doesn't have the luxury of making that poor taste joke. That's the part you guys don't seem to understand. Pardon my language. And my firmness.
Mm-hmm.
You are the representative of the people, all of the people of Ontario. As the Premier, you do not get the luxury of making these jokes, and again, behind closed doors, to police. These are not jokes when they come from the mouth of the Premier. Never, not in any context, ever. This is not an acceptable explanation. Why did you chip your picture? Oh, I take thousands of pictures. I shake thousands of hands. I take thousands of meetings. It was just a joke. No. All these things, these canned lines that they have to just make things go away. This is not that. This is not that. Right? Ford has repeatedly called on Ottawa to amend criminal code by implementing changes that will tighten bail rules. Quote, the Premier does not support capital punishment, but rather firmly believes more needs to be done to keep violent and repeat offenders behind bars where they belong, Lee said. Let's have Ford say it.
Mm-hmm.
In a post on social media, Ontario Liberal Party leader Ron Economy described the report as beyond disturbing. Quote, we're halfway through this self-serving election, and instead of talking about healthcare, Doug Ford is pushing for the death penalty. Just like Trump, once again, he's showing us who he really is, she wrote in her post. Ford's comments come as the Ontario election campaign has reached its midway point. The death penalty was abolished in 1976. By the way, those convicted of serious criminal offenses like murder get life imprisonment. And he's talking, anyway. So add that to bringing about the death penalty to Pierre's recent statements about just, taking an axe to foreign aid and militarizing the border. Well, all of a sudden, that's the entire Canadian identity. These are the same people that got apoplectic when we removed Terry Fox and an image of Vimy from the passports. But now they are saying, hey, militarize the border, let's cut foreign aid and bring back the death penalty.
Yeah. They want to be America.
Okay. And
move there. I'll help you pack.
Well, and here's the thing now with this Doug Ford guy, because he went to the United States and delivered that speech. And he had he's been talking about this Can-Am thing a lot. And then all of a sudden it became AmCan. They got top billing. And Mr. Grizzly, I'm going to send you a little clip that he's got going on now, because the NDP, Ontario NDP, has filed a request with the Integrity Commissioner to look at something based on this video that we're going to show, because the whole thing about being in a caretaker government is that you are not supposed to be doing things that promote you partisan-wise when you're in caretaker mode, and there are certain decisions that you cannot make during that. And people were wondering, caretaker mode, is this okay that Doug Ford is doing this? And a lot of people are saying, this caretaker mode, nobody cares about that. That is true. The average person is not discussing this. Okay. But they were given the okay so long as they didn't do certain things. And then they went there, which gives us the impression that they have agreed to not do certain things. And then turns out they made some promotional video from their trip there. And the first version of it came out with the party logo on it.
I mean,
they were told not to do it. They went ahead, giving us the impression they wouldn't do it. They did it, and they got caught. Isn't that the conservative Ontario PC storyline from the beginning? Over and over and over and over again with everything?
Their mantra is why ask for permission when you can beg for forgiveness? That's what their mantra is. I mean, come on. This is the clip here with Doug Ford.
This is the clip. And now watch this and tell me what's going on here.
Let's focus on restoring the pride of Made in the USA and Made in Canada. Let's be unapologetic as we stand up for American and Canadian workers. Today, let's usher in the new American and Canadian century, a new golden age. Let's build Fortress AmCan. Thank you, and may God bless the people of America, and may God bless the people of Canada. Thank you so much.
Could he be a bigger kiss ass? Look. Let's restore and create American. Look,
you have no responsibility for that.
You have none. Zero. You should be concerned about Canadian jobs in the province of Ontario where you live, work, and reside.
And this is
anyway, you know, I'm a little
and this
fired
is
up
all
right now.
But this is America gets top billing and everything. And I know that this is like from his speech that he said there at the American Chamber of Commerce, but that you still don't put America first. And then all the Canada and US flags and all that and the music and the whatnot. RIP Captain Canada, this guy who says he's running to protect Ontario is actually running on a deeper and more integrated union.
Mm-hmm.
That AMCAM thing is energy and minerals and whatnot, like the Auto Pact, tying us even more together with a guy who's turning his word right now on his own deal. He wants deeper economic integration with a guy who's just broke his word on his own deal, and now he's making commercials with it.
Yeah.
It's pardon my language again, but it's the fucking bait and switch.
It's this.
A bullshit?
It's the bait and switch. He lured us in, making us all believe he is Captain Canada, and he is the guy that's going to sell us right out.
Mm-hmm.
He's talking about us working closer together.
Yeah, and this is the one that could get him in trouble. Whether it's in Washington, on American airwaves, or in factories across Ontario, I'll never stop making the case that Canada and the United States are so much stronger together. Protect Ontario, Ontario PC. Here's the problem with that. Why'd you delete the last post where you broke the law and included your campaign ads at the end? Still trying to break the law like you did when you were a big-time hash dealer?
I'm sorry. So the Ontario NTP is asking the Integrity Commissioner in Elections Ontario to investigate the campaign video, portions of which were supported using taxpayer resources, given his trip. Right? Because he wasn't there. He wasn't there as leader of the PC party. He was there as Premier of Ontario. And then he used some of that footage in a partisan video. The complaint was lodged after a new video was posted on social media Thursday morning showing Ford and two progressive conservative candidates walking around Washington, D.C. The video also included footage of an event at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and meetings with elected officials, which were paid for and organized by the government. The video uploaded to Ford's social media page ended with the PC party's campaign slogan, Protect Ontario. The footage was deleted several hours after it was first posted online on Thursday and re-uploaded to Ford's social media account without the campaign slogan. Ontario NDP leader Marit Stiles said Ford was using, quote, his taxpayer-funded photo op for partisan purposes, and she said she would write to both the Integrity Commissioner and Elections Ontario to complain. Quote, Doug Ford keeps finding new and expensive ways to erode our democracy, Stiles wrote in the social media post. He's using his position to further his own political goals first. He's not looking out for Ontario jobs. Doug Ford isn't on your side. The PC campaign defended the video in a statement. Footage of the Premier being the Premier is routinely used in political social content. However, out of an abundance of caution, the video was reposted without campaign branding. Yeah, after everybody saw it for the first 4 hours with the campaign branding, though, right? After it served its purpose, right?
Yeah. Again, beg for forgiveness instead of asking for permission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, again, just cheating. PC campaign said the trip was in line with previous precedent, and Canada's other premiers had supported Ford's decision to chair the group and lead them to Washington. Quote, the Integrity Commissioner had no concerns about the premier's trip. Yes, that's true. To Washington, D.C. in his role as both premier and chair of the Council of the Federation. This occurred at the time when Canada was facing significant financial challenges that required full engagement from each province and leader, similar to the tariff threat we're facing from the United States, which is what we said on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When we said people are going to say this, I was like, no, but you said you weren't going to touch the cookie, Doug. And then you put your fingers all over the cookie. And you got chocolate chip stains on your cheek. And we're asking, where's the cookie? You go, because your mouth is still full of cookie. Doug? Jeez. Okay. So, And then at least this newspaper, this article from Global is doing the right thing in the sense that when they're talking about the meeting, when Ford emerged from the event, he said the premiers had, quote, a positive conversation with, quote, a, quote, high-ranking official, but refused to say who. BC Premier David Eby clarified that the meeting was with Deputy Chief of Staff James Blair and Director of Presidential Personnel Sergio Gore. Like literally about like 3 or 4 minutes after Doug Ford said, oh, I can't say. It's beauty. Hopefully I'll be able to show you the clip at some point. Yeah. So Ford trip not going well, death penalty thing. Like there's a lot of hot mic stuff or behind closed door stuff all of a sudden. So there's clearly a face that Doug Ford presents to us, and face that Doug Ford presents when he's yucking it up with his buds. And it's not the same face. But the problem is Doug Ford has fallen on both of them at the same time. Fallen on both your faces, and like Marilyn Monroe, you did not take time to make at least one of them pretty. Okay, and now the big stuff. Right? Pierre's panicking, Ford's panicking, all that kind of stuff. There's people in the Ford former chief of staff being sued for the Greenbelt stuff. And we get to Alberta, where we have the big thing, again, probably severely damaging the Conservative brand overall, which is Danielle Smith. And Mr. Grizzly, if you would indulge me in this one, I believe I sent you an email message that has a PDF in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and the PDF is the statement of claim that was filed in court yesterday by former AHS CEO Athana Mentzelopoulos. It's amazing how good I've gotten so quickly at saying her last name, because she's been in the news that much. I think I started reading it yesterday, and I was like, damn, most people aren't going to read all of this, but you need to hear it, because one of my overarching themes to this show is about the global Canadian conservative movement since the emergence of the sort of reform type wing, and how it has criminality, corruption, and all that other stuff in its DNA. The things that you will that the CEO, former CEO of AHS, alleges here, and the key word here is alleges, because none of these claims have been proven or tested in court. But she's putting her name to them publicly in a legal document, which has weight. Some of this will make your hair curl, to be totally honest. And I thought we should just read it into the record. Would you be okay with that, Mr. Grizzly?
If you want, go ahead. You can do it.
I don't know if you wanted to go back and forth with me.
Honestly, I looked it over, and it's like it's too dry for me. I'm tired, and no. You can go ahead by all means. Okay. I'm going to go off camera for a minute because I have to go take care of something here, but I'll be back shortly.
All right. Kids and Cubs, story time with Mr. Beaver for Valentine's Day. And pay attention, because there's a lot of things in this that might lead to the complete implosion of this movement, and it would not be a moment too soon. So, this was filed at the Court of King's Bench in Alberta, Edmonton. Athana Mentzelopoulos is the plaintiff. Defendants, Alberta Health Services, His Majesty the King in the right of Alberta, as represented by Adriana LaGrange in her capacity as Minister of Health. So she's suing both the AHS and the Minister of Health personally, it seems. Or we're suing the government, because we're suing His Majesty the King, so suing the Crown. For the actions of this minister. The statement of claim, notice to defendants, you are being sued. You are a defendant. Go to the end of this document to see what you can do and when you must do it. Statement of facts relied on the parties. 1. The plaintiff, Mentzelopoulos, is an individual residing in Edmonton, Alberta. Mentzelopoulos has extensive leadership experience within various provincial governments and the federal government. She has served in a variety of senior roles within the public sector, both in Alberta and British Columbia, including as Deputy Minister of Treasury Board and Finance for both provinces. At the date of the purported termination of her employment on January 8, 2025, Mentzelopoulos was 57 years old. The defendant, Alberta Health Services, is a regional health authority created under the Regional Health Authorities Act, RSA 2000, which legislation was replaced on May 30th, 2024 by the Provincial Health Agencies Act. So whenever you hear someone refer to PHAA, that's what it is. At all material times, the plaintiff was employed by AHS pursuant to the employment agreement dated December 7th, 2023, or in the alternative, and specifically after May 30th, 2024, the defendant, His Majesty the King in Right of Alberta, as represented by Adriana LaGrange, in her capacity as the Member of Health, Minister LaGrange, and she will be heretofore referred as Minister LaGrange. In the further alternative, by both AHS and Minister LaGrange after May 30th, 2024. The relevant facts. Mentzelopoulos was the President and Chief Executive Officer of AHS from on or about December 7th, 2023, until she was purportedly terminated without notice by the Deputy Minister of Health in a Zoom meeting on January 8th, 2025. It is still unclear who, if anyone, with actual legal authority within AHS made the decision to terminate Mentzelopoulos, or if it was, in fact, AHS that made the decision at all. At all material times, Mentzelopoulos reported to the AHS Board of Directors and the Executive Chair pursuant to the terms of her employment agreement. She carried out her duties loyally and faithfully, operated at all times with a view to the best interests of AHS and in accordance with best management practices and operational standards. For its part, the defendants, or either of them, owed Mentzelopoulos a duty of good faith in its conduct relative to her employment and owed her a duty to be honest and not to act in capricious or arbitrary manner. As AHS President and CEO, Mentzelopoulos' mandate included, among other duties, assessing and approving RFPs, that's requests for proposals, for 2 new chartered surgical facilities, CSFs, including in Red Deer and Lethbridge, Alberta, and negotiating a new contract and payment rates for the Alberta Surgical Group, ASG, in Edmonton, Alberta. The existing 2-year contract between AHS and ASG expired in October 2024. Mentzelopoulos undertook these duties and all other President and CEO duties with a view to the best interests of AHS and accordance with the best practice management and operational standards. On January 8, 2025, Mentzelopoulos was asked to attend a Zoom call with AHS Board Chair Angela Fong. When Mentzelopoulos signed on to the Zoom meeting, she was surprised to see that Chair Fong was not in attendance. Rather, Deputy Minister of Health Andre Tremblay had signed into the Zoom meeting along with Connie Webster, the AHS Executive Director of HRBP and Ability Management. So I'm guessing this is Human Resources. Tremblay then advised he was terminating Mentzelopoulos as President and CEO of AHS. Tremblay signed a termination letter supposedly on behalf of the AHS Board of Directors, despite Tremblay not being the Executive Chair of the AHS Board, and in absence of an AHS Board motion to terminate Mentzelopoulos. Interesting. In short, Mentzelopoulos was purportedly fired over Zoom in the absence of AHS Board approval by someone from the Ministry of Health who lacked actual authority to do so, and after she was misled about the attendees for and the purpose of the meeting. Okay. Further, Tremblay purported to terminate Mentzelopoulos' employment with AHS because Mentzelopoulos had authorized an internal investigation and forensic audit into various AHS contracts and AHS procurement processes, including contracts with private healthcare providers and suppliers, and had supported a proper due diligence assessment and costing for contracts with several private surgical facilities whose principals were connected to various government officials. AHS had also undertaken an investigation into potential conflicts of interest around CSF and other AHS procurement issues, including an unfulfilled $70 million contract between AHS and MH Care for Children's acetaminophen. That's the Tylenol deal. In other words, Mentzelopoulos was purportedly terminated capriciously, arbitrarily, and in bad faith because she was actually carrying out her duties for AHS. By January 2025, Mentzelopoulos had completed just over 1 year of a 4-year contract as president and CEO of AHS. Prior to becoming CEO and president of AHS, Mentzelopoulos had left her position in the government of Alberta and accepted a position as the CEO of the Alberta Medical Association. So she was the CEO of the Alberta Medical Association, and then they recruited her to bring her in to do this, and then sacked her rather unceremoniously 1 year later by inviting her to a Zoom meeting that was allegedly going to be for one thing with one person, and then they pulled the bait and switch on her. Classy people. Allegedly. However, in the fall of 2023, Mentzelopoulos was recruited and pressured by Tremblay and other government officials to leave AMA and become the president and CEO of AHS. In December 2023, as a direct result of this recruitment and pressure by government officials, Mentzelopoulos agreed to resign her position with AMA and become the president and CEO of AHS. So, interesting. She was working with the government of Alberta, got a great job, possibly a dream job, as the CEO of the Alberta Medical Association, because, I mean, that's the top job in the province with regard to that type of stuff. And then they come to her and recruit her and really pressure her. Like, we really, really need you. You got to come, or something like that, from what I guess I gather. And then they do this to her after. Okay. Interesting. On December 7, 2023, Mentzelopoulos and AHS signed a 4-year term contract pursuant to which Mentzelopoulos became the president and CEO of AHS. As of January 2025, Mentzelopoulos would have earned approximately $1.7 million in her base salary, plus benefits over the remaining term of the 4-year contract. And she wants it. Throughout 2024, and given that, I had a job and then got a really great job as the CEO of the AMA, and you pressure me to leave that to take this, and then you do this to me, I'd be playing Rihanna's Bitch Better Have My Money all the time too, on a loop. Throughout 2024, Mentzelopoulos had been repeatedly subject to interference and pressure from various government of Alberta officials, including the Premier's then Chief of Staff, Marshall Smith, to sign off on commitments for new CSFs and approve a contract extension for ASG, despite significant concerns within AHS around the true ownership and potential costs of the CSFs, and concerns over the significantly increased costs of the ASG contract when compared to other private contractors, and also compared to internal AHS costing estimates. During 2024, Mentzelopoulos also learned that ASG was being promoted by former MLA Doug Horner, and that ASG had somehow been awarded a 2-year CSF contract, despite having been uncompetitive in the initial RFP process for CSF contracts. Okay, so basically they had bid for contracts for one of these chartered surgical facilities, were deemed to have been uncompetitive, and yet somehow, some way, had been awarded a 2-year contract. And then it seems that the contract, she was pressured to write the contract in such a way that the fees that they would get from the services would be higher than the own AHS costing estimates and compared to other private contractors that AHS has hired. Okay, interesting. The efforts by government officials to increase prices being paid to private suppliers, both in excess of prices being paid to other private suppliers and also internal AHS costing, ran contrary to her extensive experience in government negotiations, including when she had served as Deputy Minister of Finance and Treasury Board. Again, this is a serious person. These are very, very high-level positions within a provincial government. Provincial public service, I should say. In early 2024, Marshall Smith told Mentzelopoulos that an individual named Jitendra Prasad was his guy. That's a quote, was his guy. And that Prasad had been put in place at Alberta Health to make sure that the government could, quote, get contracting right. Shortly after this discussion, Prasad contacted Mentzelopoulos and advised that he was close to Marshall Smith and he was working to set up a new healthcare contracting group within Alberta Health to get contracting right. Please define right. For her part, Mentzelopoulos was uncomfortable with the interference, yeah, you don't say, that Prasad would be taking some level of direction from Marshall Smith and potentially the Premier's office on AHS procurement and contract issues that were specific to AHS and that fell within Mentzelopoulos' mandate as president and CEO. So basically, yeah, there's this guy, he's my guy, and that part of the job that you're not doing that anymore. He's going to be doing that for me. Allegedly. Okay. Further, in the subsequent AHS assessment and investigation into the CSFs and ASG contract, particulars of which are set out below, Mentzelopoulos became aware that Prasad, who had been seconded by AHS to Alberta Health in December 2023, and who was involved in the negotiation and analysis of various AHS contracts, had a potentially serious conflict of interest. Specifically, A, Prasad retired briefly from AHS in April 2022 before becoming a contractor for AHS, and then returned as an AHS employee in the position of Chief Program Officer and later Special Advisor for AHS Contracts, Procurement, and Supply Management. That's CPSM, that we're going to be referring to later. From October 2022 to December 2023, before then being seconded from AHS to Alberta Health. But Prasad had an MHCare Medical email address, jprasad@mhcaremedical.com. In November 2022, just before the then Minister of Health directed AHS to enter into a contract with MHCare for a $70 million children's acetaminophen purchase order and supply agreement. And Prasad may also have been and Prasad may have also been retained or otherwise contracted by persons who were involved with the chartered surgical facilities and other AHS procurement contracts in and after 2022. Okay. Having an email address at the corporation for which you are now as a public servant directed to enter into a contract is not typical, I will say. That probably should not be happening. These potential conflicts of interest were still being investigated as of January 8, 2025. In June 2024, Mentzelopoulos received a call from Marshall Smith, who was inquiring into why, as he understood it, AHS was, quote, capping the contract with ASG. Mentzelopoulos explained there was, quote, no cap, and advised that ASG needed to continue working within the existing contract provisions with AHS. Mentzelopoulos was concerned as to why Premier's Chief of Staff was calling the President and CEO of AHS and making inquiries seemingly on behalf of a private surgical provider. On June 26, 2024, Mentzelopoulos sent an email to Tremblay, Darren Headley, the Associate Deputy Minister of Health, and Nicole Williams, the Chief of Staff for Minister LaGrange, in case the, quote, capping concerns were raised with Alberta Health. Mentzelopoulos summarized a number of facts and projections around the ASG contract. She then raised the concern that ASG was projected to exceed the contract value by almost $3.5 million in billings, but was also being projected to not deliver the required number of surgical procedures under its contract with AHS. Mentzelopoulos did not receive a response to her email and assumed Alberta Health agreed with her concerns. In July 2024, Mentzelopoulos unexpectedly received a draft agreement from Alberta Health that would have given Alberta Health the right to approve procurement contracts, including contracts for private surgical facilities, such as ASG, on behalf of AHS. Mentzelopoulos refused to sign the contract. Sorry. I think it says contact here, but it must be contract. Mentzelopoulos refused to sign the contract, but her refusal was overtaken by later events in October 2024. So she was asked to do that. She said no, and then I guess they found another way. During the summer of 2024, Mentzelopoulos was again contacted by Marshall Smith, who advised Mentzelopoulos that, quote, powerful people were upset and angry about the Twitter feed of an AHS employee, Nate Pike. If that name rings a bell, kits and cubs, Nate Pike is a friend of this show. He's the host of The Breakdown Alberta. So for those of you who were watching yesterday, this was some of the stuff I was about to get to in that little article that got so hot that my battery made my battery so hot that it gave out. But this is the juicy stuff here. So let's go back on that one. During the summer of 2024, Mentzelopoulos was again contacted by Marshall Smith, who advised Mentzelopoulos that powerful people, in quotes, were upset and angry about the Twitter feed of an AHS employee, Nate Pike, an AHS paramedic, who was apparently posting criticism of the government while on duty. Smith alleged that a complaint and lawsuit were going to be filed against Mr. Pike. And there's a footnote there that says MHCare Medical and Sam Mraish have since filed a $6 million defamation lawsuit against Nate Pike, among other defendants. And we are trying to set a time to get Nate to come back on our show to discuss this for you kids and cubs, by the way. Mentzelopoulos asked Smith if he was trying to tell her that AHS had to fire Mr. Pike. Smith replied that Mr. Pike was, quote, your employee, and, quote, you're going to look very bad, and there would be, quote, consequences. Mentzelopoulos advised Smith that she would not fire Mr. Pike, but after the discussion, she contacted AHS leadership and advised them to speak to Mr. Pike about not tweeting while at work. Okay, that's fine. Yes. But, which I'm sure he's complied with, but in terms of having the show and voicing opinions, public servants do have some restrictions to what it is they are allowed to say about the government in public. But there are some basic things. Otherwise, we are allowed, like we can have a lawn sign for a party on our, like this, we can talk about who we vote for and all that. There's, I was talking about we, like I'm still a public servant. So there are rules. Right? You can be a public servant and have a side business. You can be a public servant and have a political podcast. There's nothing wrong with that. There's certain things that certain subjects that you're not allowed to broach, and there's certain transparency rules that you like this, which you should probably just do if you respect your audience in anyway. Which nobody here is complaining that Mr. Pike did not comply with. So it seems to be simply that they just don't like what he was saying. And, okay. This type of call from Smith was not unique. As Mentzelopoulos had previously been pressured by Tremblay via text message to terminate purportedly critics of the government, including Carmel Stanky, Jeremy Thiel, and Sherry Kashuba. In support of this pressure from Tremblay, the chief of staff of Minister LaGrange sent Mentzelopoulos a screenshot of the allegedly offensive tweet that had been, quote, liked by one of these individuals. Somebody tweeted something I don't like. You need to fire them. It appears is what's going on. As the CEO, everybody at AHS works for you. So whether they're your direct subordinate or not, like immediate direct support, you need to fire them because we don't like what they're saying about us on their free time. I had to specify on the free time because the first comment was about, while at work. But the rest of his show is all completely on free time. The one he's being sued $6 million for. Okay. Later during the summer, Marshall Smith again spoke to Mentzelopoulos, this time about another Twitter feed called Hansard the Cat that was apparently critical of the government. Smith outlined a number of steps, including private detectives, lawyers, and, quote, apparently hackers that were being used to discover the identity of the person posted under the Hansard the Cat name. That is very, very bad. And I hope that if they were doing this very bad thing, they were using party resources and not taxpayer resources for that, because that would be extremely bad. Throwing the full weight of the state behind trying to uncover someone's identity for partisan purposes. Wow. Private detectives, lawyers, and apparently hackers. This Hansard the Cat must have been saying some stuff that was particularly true and must have been rather effective at doing it. To put that much effort and expense into discovering who they are. Told you this stuff would make your hair curl. It was during this conversation that Smith told Mentzelopoulos about, quote, Sam, who was apparently taking legal action to force disclosure of the identity of, quote, Hansard the cat. Smith told Mentzelopoulos that, quote, Smith told Mentzelopoulos that he, quote, would be taken care of for the rest of his life, somehow in relation to, quote, Sam. Mentzelopoulos understood that Sam was Mr. Sam Mraish, the principal and CEO of MH Care Medical, who had been the subject of media reports for having allegedly taken various government ministers and officials to Oilers hockey playoff games in May and June 2024. In August 2024, Mentzelopoulos was asked by Alberta health officials to meet specifically with ASG to discuss the status of their contract. Mentzelopoulos was told that Doug Horner was unhappy about ASG services being, quote, capped. Therefore, on August 23, 2024, Mentzelopoulos met with ASG officials. During that meeting, ASG officials alleged that they had been told that the current contract would not be binding in terms of pricing and services, and that there was some kind of, quote, contingency provision if ASG exceeded the volume of contractual surgical procedures. Mentzelopoulos could not find any support for these allegations in the contract itself. Pardon me, I will take a little sip of water here. After the meeting with ASG, Mentzelopoulos undertook a further review of the existing ASG contract and noted significant differences in the ASG contract compared to other AHS procurement contracts. Wow, it's amazing what a little comparative reading would do. Among other issues, she noted that the ASG rates were higher than other comparable private sector providers, and that AHS was potentially paying ASG for services that were not being used. She continued to have serious concerns about the proposed rates and costs for a new ASG contract and felt that AHS needed more information before continuing negotiations. Sounds like she's doing her job very, very, very well. And that might have been the problem. Allegedly. Moving on. On August 29, 2024, Mentzelopoulos sent a letter to Tremblay in his capacity as Deputy Minister of Alberta Health, outlining the concerns raised by ASG officials on August 23, 2024. In the letter, Mentzelopoulos provided a summary of concerns around ASG contract and advised Tremblay that she had completed an informal review of the ASG contract and had identified provisions, quote, that materially differ from similar arrangements between AHS and other contract surgical providers. Mentzelopoulos noted that the differences included, quote, a provision to pay for 2 overnight stays per procedure, something that would not have been supported by clinical advice and which we know has not been required. Oh, so for every surgery that's supposed to have a 1-night stay, we bill for 2-night stays. If I'm understanding this correctly. And only this particular contractee had that provision, because normally it's 1 surgery, 1-night stay. If I'm understanding this correctly. I could be wrong. The letter confirmed that the ASG contract was expiring on October 31st, 2024, and ASG was requesting an extension of the contract, and therefore AHS needed to understand the issues around the ASG contract before taking further negotiations. The letter stated that there was, quote, a need to ensure a robust and transparent system for allocating orthopedic surgeries, and that the CSF contracts were central and south zones were being negotiated and, quote, the successful proponents are advocating for terms similar to those found in the ASG contract. Mentzelopoulos advised Tremblay that, quote, given the Crown's commitment to prudent stewardship of public funds, the information arising from my discussions with ASG is very concerning, and that she was pausing contract negotiations with ASG until AHS had completed a review of the potential costing and review of contract terms. She paused negotiations on other CSFs pending a review of the ASG contract on the basis that similar contracts would likely be required for the new CSFs. So basically, from what I'm understanding here, is that they got a call, I'm guessing would probably be for the Lethbridge and the Red Deer units, saying model that contract after the contract that we already have there. And she's noticing that there's things not okay with this contract. And if we're doing that, we're probably going to be using this contract model for more. So before we do that, maybe we should look into this and review. And then she's reviewing some stuff. And then she says, I found some stuff that is very concerning, so concerning that she needs to pause the contract negotiations. So here you got a situation, if I'm understanding correctly, where the people that are putting pressure on her want this to go faster so that the money can get out the door faster to the people they're trying to get that money out to, which are people that probably should not be getting that much of the money, according to the AHS CEO. And she's said, wow, in the process of wanting to make things go quicker, I'm noticing a couple of things that make me have to stop all of this right now. So now the people that are putting pressure on her are not only not getting her to do the things that we're going through, but now by trying to push too hard, got the whole process to stop. No progress is being made at the moment until she's looking under something that I am guessing, deducing by the fact that she was fired and now she's suing, is stuff that probably would have made the whole project either fall apart or take way, way longer than anybody was comfortable with. Okay. And therefore, I'm guessing there was the escalation in the form of her firing or whatever. Mentzelopoulos then advised AHS board about potential concerns over the existing ASG contract and the renewal negotiations and the resulting pause on the other CSF negotiations. Before that briefing, Mentzelopoulos was told privately by a board member to, quote, be very careful about what she was doing and that she needed to potentially be cautious about her personal safety given some of the people potentially involved behind the scenes. Out of abundance of caution, Mentzelopoulos contacted AHS Protective Services for a risk assessment. AHS Protective Services undertook a risk assessment and advised Mentzelopoulos that she was unlikely to be at risk of any physical harm, but that the individuals involved in ASG would likely apply political pressure to have her terminated from AHS if she threatened their financial interests, which happened. On September 16, 2024, Mentzelopoulos met for dinner with Minister LaGrange at Pacini, Calgary Northwest after requesting private time with her. At the dinner, Mentzelopoulos advised LaGrange that AHS had begun an internal review of some concerning files that potentially had linkages to individuals who had been in the news over the summer. Mentzelopoulos' intention at this dinner was to reassure the minister that while this was a very complex and potentially sensitive matter, it would be appropriately managed by AHS. This was the first time Mentzelopoulos discussed these issues with Minister LaGrange. The dinner took place approximately 2 weeks after AHS had commenced its internal review into the ASG contract. Now, this is a very smart thing that Mentzelopoulos has done, because as a communications person, I can tell you that the two words you do not want to hear in a sentence anywhere near together are minister and vulnerable. So if this was going on, it makes the minister vulnerable, right? So this could be a situation. If there was no Marshall Smith involvement and all that kind of stuff, let's say this was just happening on its own, which is kind of the thing that's being suspected from the Social Development Technology Canada, what the Conservatives are calling the Green Slush Fund, right? There are people in the organization that are doing shady things. That doesn't necessarily mean that the minister is aware of it or ministers approved of it, right? But at some point it's going to get discovered and it's going to go up the chain. And when it goes up the chain, it's what the minister does with the news when they find out about it that matters. The minister can't prevent it from happening in the first place, and probably won't be the first to hear about it when it happens. So can't necessarily put a stop to it at that moment. So there's stuff that's going to go on. But when it does finally get so bad that it gets to their attention, because remember, nothing gets told to the minister, because if any other level can't handle it. But in this case, you have the CEO of AHS going to the minister and saying, look, there's this thing happening. It's really, really concerning because I'm telling you about it because you might hear about it or it could come out in the press, and I don't want you to be caught by surprise. But so far, it looks like it's something that we internally are able to handle. So this is just for information. You don't have to do anything. Okay? But clearly, if Ms. Mentzelopoulos is telling the truth in the statement of claim, which is a legal document, and she has to swear that these things are true. This Minister LaGrange knew. There would be no doubt about this here. On September 21, 2024, Mentzelopoulos received another call from Marshall Smith, who wanted to know the status of negotiations on the chartered surgical facilities in Red Deer and Lethbridge, Alberta. Smith advised Mentzelopoulos that there were, quote, serious businessmen, quote, Smith, this is Marshall Smith, not Danielle, advised Mentzelopoulos that there were, quote, serious businessmen who were unhappy with the delays in negotiations, and they needed AHS to approve the CSFs in order to secure financing. Mentzelopoulos explained the reason for the delay, but Smith ended the conversation with a comment that the CSF principals were, quote, serious people. Do not mess with them. So that's the thing, right? The thing that they wanted to go quickly, which is now just paused completely because she's noticed too many fishy things. Well, now they're not upset. Now they're upset with it. And now it's like, these are serious people. Don't mess with them. Get this process back on track. Chop, chop. Start it again. Don't look at this. Just keep going with the regularly scheduled program. Allegedly. On October 1st, 2024, Mentzelopoulos sent a draft letter to Darren Headley, the Associate Deputy Minister of Health, entitled, quote, Chartered Surgical Facilities, Recommended Next Steps. The draft letter was addressed to Minister LaGrange, but Mentzelopoulos noted that it should likely be sent to Tremblay as the Deputy Minister of Health. The draft letter raised the specific concern that CSFs continue to demand higher pricing than the equivalent comparable cost within AHS and with other surgical providers. The letter then sent out 6 recommendations, quote, to ensure appropriate management of both financial and operational resources, including a recommendation that, quote, CSF pricing should not exceed the validated AHS internal costs, and that, quote, pricing paid per procedure should reflect a competitive market, including AHS and its existing private surgical providers. The letter included price comparisons for orthopedic surgical procedures provided by AHS and various private surgical contractors, including rates for ASG and the ClearPoint Health Network in Calgary, Alberta, as well as the rates being proposed by the proponents for Central and South Zone that were still being negotiated with AHS. The letter indicated that the ClearPoint pricing was competitive with AHS internal cost, but there were very significant differences in pricing between ClearPoint, who had recently won a competitive bid process and entered into a 7-year contract with AHS, and pricing proposed by ASG and the Central and South Zone contractors. Pardon me for a second. I need to clear my throat. There you go. Thank you. On October 3rd, 2024, Mentzelopoulos then met with Headley and Tremblay to recommend a new pricing and, quote, a regulated rate for the new ASG contract extension and other CFSs based on, that should be CSFs, sorry. There's a typo there. Based on the October 1st, 2024 draft letter. Mentzelopoulos was aware that Alberta Health wanted to expedite the CSF contracts, and she developed this approach as a basis to do so. Mentzelopoulos advised Alberta Health representatives that, in her view, if the prices offered for services were defensible, then concerns about process could be obviated. Alberta Health said they appreciated Mentzelopoulos' work on the issue and would get back to her shortly. However, shortly after the meeting, Mentzelopoulos then received a directive from Minister LaGrange, the October directive, the one that we read into the show the other day. The October directive indicated that all CSF contract negotiations, including the renewal contract for ASG for AHS, would now be done under Alberta Health leadership. The October directive was also set out specific rates for CSF that Mentzelopoulos later determined were in excess of the most recently negotiated AHS rates and would lead to significantly increased costs to AHS and potentially hundreds of millions of profits for the CSF owners. So I'm guessing that this was the manner in which her objections were overruled that was mentioned earlier. So basically, she had this meeting with LaGrange, told her that you need to be concerned about some stuff. Got a couple of other calls. Did more work. Contacted the Associated Deputy Minister of Health, and then all of a sudden, there's just a directive that comes on down from on high, from the minister's office, that says that the renewal contract for ASG is now going to be done under the leadership of Alberta Health, and these will be the rates that they are being paid. Rates in excess of recently negotiated AHS rates, and that's just how it's going to be. Mentzelopoulos asked Alberta Health who specifically would be handling the negotiations under the October directive, and she was told that Prasad would lead the negotiations on behalf of Alberta Health. Mentzelopoulos was also told that Prasad had helped draft the October directive. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, is this not the same person? Yes, this Prasad is the person who earlier on had a medical email address, had an email address with MH Care Medical at the same time as they were AHS was directed to enter into the contract with MH Care for the purchase of the children's Tylenol. So this person shows up again at this point, and now will be taking on a bigger role. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So let's read that again. Mentzelopoulos asked Alberta Health who specifically would be handling the negotiations under the October directive, and she was told that Prasad would lead the negotiations on behalf of Alberta Health. Mentzelopoulos was also told that Prasad had helped draft the October directive. Mentzelopoulos had previously arranged meetings with senior government officials, including Deputy Minister to the Premier Ray Gilmore, on October 4th, 2024, to outline her concerns about the relationship between Prasad and Marshall Smith, and potential conflicts involving Prasad, MH Care, and potentially the chartered surgical facilities. Gilmore said he would, quote, look into it, but Mentzelopoulos never heard back from Gilmore. In October 2024, AHS also received immediate inquiry regarding to the AHS purchase of children's ibuprofen and acetaminophen that included questions about any business AHS had with MH Care Medical, Medical, and any other companies owned by Sam Raish. The media inquiry was sent to Prasad to draft a reply because Mentzelopoulos had been told by Alberta Health that Prasad was the person who negotiated the AHS purchase contract for children's acetaminophen and knew, quote, everything about the deal. So she's being completely sidelined here. Several days later, Mentzelopoulos received the proposed reply drafted by Prasad and apparently reviewed by staff in Alberta Health and by the Premier's office. The response indicated that AHS did not have any contract with MH Care and that the children's ibuprofen acetaminophen contract had been between AHS and a Turkish company, Atabey Pharmaceuticals, a statement that Mentzelopoulos knew was false. Individuals involved in the preparation of the draft reply and the underlying information were then placed on administrative leave, although the administrative leave of one individual employed by Alberta Health was reversed, purportedly at the direction of the Premier's office. Okay, so, yeah. The document says that does not attribute correctly who the party with whom the government or AHS is contracting is. The CEO knows it's a lie, and then a couple of people are placed on administrative leave for having made that mistake, and then one of them is removed from that administrative leave at the direction of the Premier's office. The Premier's office, not the Minister's office, the Premier's office. This is the first time that the Premier's office, well, other than talking about Marshall Smith, or Chief of Staff, but okay. As a result, Mentzelopoulos required information from AHS financial officials and learned that AHS had purchased approximately $614 million in supplies and services from MH Care and other companies affiliated with Sam Raish, including the 2022-2023 contract for children's ibuprofen acetaminophen. Mentzelopoulos further learned that $70 million for purchase of children's ibuprofen and acetaminophen had been paid upfront and likely at a significantly increased price, and that AHS had been directed by a then Minister of Health to make the purchase against the recommendation that AHS had specifically provided to the then Minister of Health, which was in turn provided to the Premier's office. So the Premier's office was aware of the recommendation of AHS to not go ahead with this purchase, and they did it anyway, and then paid all the money up front. And of course, again, they were, when asked specifically, because that was the previous point, right? Several days later, Mentzelopoulos received the proposal reply drafted by Prasad and apparently reviewed by staff in Alberta Health and by the Premier's office. The response indicated that AHS did not have any contract with MH Care. Well, turns out there's $614 million of contracts with MH Care. Wonder how somebody missed that with the reply. 614 million. More than $500 million. Come on. As a result of Prasad's demonstrably false draft media response and the subsequent analysis by Mentzelopoulos and her staff of contracts between AHS and MH Care and other companies affiliated with Sam Raich, Mentzelopoulos initiated an external forensic audit by the law firm Borden Ladner Gervais LLP in early November 2024. AHS then disclosed the fact of its investigation and external forensic audit to the Auditor General. Yeah, I would have done that too. It seems like she is doing her job. The Auditor General's office indicated it had received other requests to investigate MH Care and wanted a dedicated briefing on the results of the AHS investigation and audit. The briefing was delayed, but was eventually scheduled for January 10th, 2025, being 2 days after Mentzelopoulos was purportedly terminated on the Zoom call by Deputy Health Minister Tremblay. So it seems that the Auditor General's office had heard from other people and other sources like, hey, maybe you want to look into this MH Care thing. And it seems that when the AHS CEO sent her stuff in saying, you know what, maybe I need to take a look at a dedicated briefing on this type of thing. And then, well, the briefing will be scheduled for January 10th, 2025, January 8th, 2025. Hello, yes, would you have a meeting with us? We want to discuss this thing. Your meeting's going to be with such a person. Okay. Hey, welcome to the meeting. Hey, where's the person I'm supposed to have the meeting with? Oh, she's not here. By the way, the purpose of the meeting is not for that. You're fired. Okay. Is it any wonder why she's suing? Wow. Okay. In November 2024, and as the internal AHS review and the external forensic audit was continuing, Minister LaGrange sent a new directive that limited Mentzelopoulos' financial decision-making authority as CEO. Oh. Okay. On November 25th, 2024, Mentzelopoulos and board chair Fong met with Minister LaGrange as part of a weekly briefing. In advance of that meeting, Fong asked Mentzelopoulos to be prepared to brief the minister on the internal investigation. Mentzelopoulos advised Fong that with the forensic audit having only just started days prior, it was premature to brief the minister. However, during the weekly meeting, Fong invited Mentzelopoulos to update the minister on the internal investigation. Mentzelopoulos advised LaGrange that work had started as a narrow review of one CSF contract in September had necessarily been brought in early November. As such, there was, quote, no hard findings yet to report, but that materials Mentzelopoulos had seen were concerning. Minister LaGrange then told Mentzelopoulos that she wanted to, quote, wind it up expeditiously, quickly, as soon as possible. By December 2024, Mentzelopoulos was hearing rumors that her employment was in jeopardy because of the ongoing AHS investigations and audit, despite the AHS board being supportive of those same initiatives. On December 2nd, so I guess that's why the board had to go too. On December 2nd, 2024, Mentzelopoulos met with Minister LaGrange and was told she had been on, quote, a different page lately compared to the minister. Minister LaGrange said that Mentzelopoulos had done, quote, phenomenal things since being appointed CEO for AHS, but said that the, quote, front lines were not getting information about the healthcare refocusing. They discussed various issues around healthcare restructuring, and the minister provided Mentzelopoulos with conflicting advice. The minister was critical of Minister Jason Nixon for, quote, jumping the gun on healthcare refocusing, but she also complained that AHS was not moving quickly enough with the refocusing initiatives. At the end of this 2-hour meeting, the minister told Mentzelopoulos that they had not even discussed, quote, the good stuff, which the minister then said was, quote, the investigation. As a result, a further meeting was scheduled for December 9th, 2024 to discuss, I'm guessing, the good stuff, the investigation and audit with Minister LaGrange. The meeting was cancelled because the minister was ill, but Mentzelopoulos then received a request from Deputy Minister of Health Tremblay for an update on the CSF investigation. This was the first and only request of this nature from Tremblay or Alberta Health. Therefore, on December 9th, 2024, Mentzelopoulos sent Tremblay an email that followed up on her initial letter to Tremblay on August 29th, 2024, and the October 1st, 2024 draft letter sent to Associate Deputy Minister of Health Darren Headley, entitled Chartered Surgical Facilities Recommended Next Steps. The email summarized steps taken since the August 29th, 2024 letter and indicated that she was waiting for the final AHS report into the CSF contract review. The email also raised the ongoing review of the AHS and MH Care contract for children's acetaminophen. On December 11th, 2024, Mentzelopoulos met with Tremblay and discussed her email update about the interim status of review and investigation for the chartered surgical facilities. Tremblay wanted to know when negotiations on the CSFs could resume. Mentzelopoulos advised that Alberta Health Services was prepared to restart negotiations immediately and said the negotiations on the CSFs would continue to be informed by proper procurement practices and advice, including from AHS Legal, so as to secure the best terms and pricing for HS. So in other words, when can you get this back? Oh, we can start right now, so long as you understand that the pricing that we are going to negotiate is going to be within AHS terms. I'm guessing he didn't like that answer. On December 12, 2024, Mentzelopoulos was called by Darren Headley and advised that Tremblay had briefed Minister LaGrange after the December 11, 2024 meeting, but the minister was dismissive of the need to continue the internal investigation. Headley told Mentzelopoulos that Minister LaGrange, quote, wants the CSF contract signed next week. Mentzelopoulos replied that if the minister wanted the contract signed without completing the proper due diligence, then perhaps Headley or someone at Alberta Health should sign the contracts directly. Oh, that is good. That is good. Headley declined that option. Gee, I wonder why, but advised Mentzelopoulos that the principals behind the CSFs were calling every day and the pressure was intense. In other words, she's going, bitch, you're trying to get me to do something illegal. If you want it done so bad, you sign the damn paper. You have the authority. Oh, no, I don't want to do that, but they're calling every day. You need to sign this. Allegedly, if I understand this correctly. By December 12, 2024, Mentzelopoulos and others within AHS had significant concerns about CSF due diligence issues and possible conflicts of interest by then former AHS employees around the CSF negotiations and possibly around MH Care. The concerns included, okay, this is, get ready for this. Prasad had been a leader in the AHS CPSM group prior to his retirement from AHS. However, he then began consulting for private companies, including potentially ASG, while at the same time appears to have been acting as a contract advisor to AHS and participated in meetings involving CSF decisions and strategies. Further, he then joined Alberta Health and assumed a key role in negotiating contracts with the CSFs, including presumably ASG. B. Another former AHS employee who had also been a leader in the CPSM group and involved in the request for proposals for the chartered surgical facilities had resigned from AHS to join MH Care. He was then involved in representing the chartered surgical facilities and obtained an ownership stake in the chartered surgical facilities proposed for Central, Red Deer, and South Lethbridge zones. So there was an employee who was a leader of the group, left, recruited by MH Care, involved in representing CSFs that he was working on the other side for, so he has a whole bunch of internal knowledge, and got some type of ownership stake in the two being proposed. Okay. AHS corporate search records not matching the corporate ownership disclosure provided by the proponents of the CSFs in Central and Southern Alberta. Among other issues, the proponents' disclosure did not disclose an estimated 12% ownership stake in the CSFs that could not be reconciled with information provided to AHS, leaving AHS officials in the dark about who owned the remaining 12% interest. We want you to sign these quickly. It's almost like that Aaron Brockovich thing. Sort of, here, I brought you some water. We had it brought in special for you. Oh, no, I don't want to drink this water. Sign this contract. Well, no, I don't want to sign it, but you have the authority if you want it signed so bad. Oh, no, I don't want to sign it. And it turns out that nobody knows who has a 12% interest. Well, somebody knows who has that 12% interest, but somebody's working hard to make sure that nobody else knows. Just sign it. You don't need to know who we're doing business with. Just sign it. We don't want to sign it, but you sign it. Wow. They were, if I'm understanding this correctly, they were setting her up to take the fall if the poop hit the fan for this. Well, she's the one that signed them. We did nothing wrong. Must have been one of those unscrupulous public servants. Okay. ASG had been unsuccessful in the 2021-2022 RF request for proposal process with AHS, but had then somehow entered into a separate 2-year agreement with the AHS, potentially as a result of lobbying by the Honorable Doug Horner. The ASG agreement contained significantly higher rates compared to rates AHS had negotiated with similar private surgical providers in Calgary, Alberta, and inflated cost concerns were potentially a significant issue. So they couldn't even make it through the regular request for proposal process because the proposal was that not up to par. But yet, they got a contract anyway and at higher fees. How? Discovery is going to be very interesting here if this goes to court, because somebody would probably ask how that contract was given that they didn't get it through the RFP process, and there seems to have been a special process created just for it, it appears. How did that come about? Who's responsible for that? Who's in charge of that? Who knew? Who signed? Who authorized? Those would be very, very, very inconvenient questions, I would suppose. All right. And E, costing factors as between the CSFs and AHS were significantly different, and if contracts were approved based on the CSF factors, it would lead to dramatically increased pricing compared to the cost of AHS providing the same or other similar services. On December 13th, 2024, Mentzelopoulos met again with Minister LaGrange to discuss the CSFs and the status of the AHS investigation and audit, including the issues set out in paragraph 55 above. Mentzelopoulos explained that the investigation and audit were underway and outlined a number of preliminary concerns that had arisen, including the potential issues of Prasad's involvement and the potential conflict of interest around various contracts and the principles of certain service providers and AHS suppliers. After further discussion, Mentzelopoulos advised Minister LaGrange that ASS was getting excellent advice on how to proceed with CSF negotiations, and that the negotiations with CSFs in Edmonton, Red Deer, Lethbridge could restart with the appropriate and due diligence applied. Later that day, AHS provided Alberta Health with a draft letter that was to be sent to the principals of the Red Deer and Lethbridge CSFs to restart the negotiations. The letter stated the desire of AHS to proceed with negotiations and asked for information including whether specified businesses were legal entities who were the shareholders of various entities and numbered companies, and changes to the RFP interest parties between September 7th, 2022 and present, and anything of value provided to any employee consulted by the RFP interested parties. So I'm guessing that this draft letter contains some of the stuff that was contains wording that was generated after receiving that excellent legal advice on how to proceed with CSF negotiations, given what it appeared obvious to the CEO of AHS that some people in the government wanted. Sure, I'd be happy to continue the process for you. Could you please let us know whether your specified businesses are legal entities, who are the shareholders of these entities and numbered companies, and has there been any changes to your request for proposal of September 7th, 2022 and now? And has there been anything of value that has been provided to any employee or consultant by the interested parties in this request for proposal? Just let us know that information. And if all that checks out, then we'll be happy to move forward with approving She's good. She's real good. I'm guessing that didn't go over well at all. Over the next week, Alberta Health provided updates and edits to the letter, including specific removal of questions around the potential involvement of named former AHS employees in CSFs, as well as edits that Mentzelopoulos understood had been made by Minister LaGrange herself. However, Alberta Health still did not give approval for AHS to send the letter. Here's what I propose we ask. Minister sends it back. Yeah, this is great. How about we remove these couple of questions? Send it back. No, we really think that these questions should be in there. No, how about we really remove these questions? No, we really think it should be in this letter. What letter? Wow. Okay. These people, allegedly, this is just how I'm imagining things are going down based on what's put in here. I have no inside track here. On December 16th, on September 16th, 2024, Mentzelopoulos attended a reception of the AIMCO offices and was approached by Kate White, Deputy Minister of Treasury Board and Finance. Miss White asked Mentzelopoulos what was going on at Alberta Health and specifically referred to an investigation involving Prasad and, quote, kickbacks, her phrase. Mentzelopoulos declined to discuss any specifics, but was surprised to learn that officials from Treasury Board and Finance knew about the ongoing investigation. Word gets round. Turns out she's more popular than she knew, or her work was more well known than she knew. On Thursday, December 19th, 2024, Alberta Health advised that Tremblay was meeting to discuss the proposed AHS letter. Mentzelopoulos later learned that the meeting involved the Premier's office. Later that day, Alberta Health told Mentzelopoulos that the letter was not approved and that Alberta's Health would be reviewing the matter internally to decide on the next steps. So she never hears about the letter again, and then all of us for a while, and then she hears about the letter and says, well, it went to the Premier's office and it was not approved. Okay. That same day, Mentzelopoulos updated the AHS Board of Directors, including Tremblay, who also sat as an AHS board member, on the investigation and forensic audit. As part of the briefing on the forensic audit, Mentzelopoulos advised that the investigators had discovered that Prasad had an email account with MHCare during the least part of the time. I'm going to guess that's the last part, not the least. My mistake. I misread the sentence. As part of the briefing on the forensic audit, Mentzelopoulos advised that investigators had discovered that Prasad had an email account with MHCare during at least part of the time he was employed by AHS and during the time he had been negotiating the contract with MHCare for the supply of the children's ibuprofen acetaminophen. As a result of this disclosure, the AHS board recommended that the investigation and audit be expanded and that Mentzelopoulos should consider bringing the matter to the attention of the RCMP. On Friday, December 20th, 2024, AHS sent a letter to MHCare Medical regarding the $70 million supply agreement between AHS and MHCare for the provision of children's acetaminophen. The letter outlined concerns AHS had over the supply agreement and advised MHCare that A, it was unclear whether MHCare had met its obligations under the supply agreement and requested, quote, a detailed status update on MHCare's outstanding commitments under the supply agreement, as well as a, quote, full accounting and reconciliation of the prepayments AHS made to MHCare in connection with the purchase order for the children's acetaminophen, and B, requested details of the affiliation between one or more former AHS employees and MHCare in and around November 2022, when the terms of the $70 million purchase order were being negotiated with AHS. This request was made after AHS had discovered that Prasad appeared to have an MHCare email address in November 2022. So the B part of this is asking them to basically confirm whether or not Prasad was still an employee of MHCare during that time. And the first part is, could you send us documents that show this is how much you paid and this is how much you delivered to prove to us that everything was indeed delivered for all the money you got. She's good. She's real good. In its letter, AHS requested this information from MHCare no later than January 8th, 2025, the date she was fired by Zoom. How convenient. However, on Monday, December 23rd, 2024, Mentzelopoulos received a letter from Alberta Health Assistant Deputy Minister Chris Nickerson. The letter instructed Mentzelopoulos to wind up the internal investigation and transfer all related files to Alberta Health. The letter further advised Mentzelopoulos that Alberta Health, quote, will be assuming responsibility for conducting due diligence for the CSF procurements, including due diligence with respect to any selected proponents. As such, effective immediately, AHS will cease any due diligence underway with respect to CSF procurements or any selected proponents until further notified. So now there's certain budgetary things that she can't do, and now doing the entire due diligence, which is kind of her job for the procurements, is now going to be done at another level. And I'm guessing that the reason for that is because they didn't want that much diligence in the due, it would seem. Also from the letter, quote, in addition, AHS is directed to provide Alberta Health all reports, data, or information in its possession necessary to conduct any due diligence for the CSF procurements or any selected proponent. This includes, without limitation, any findings or reports arising from any investigation or review conducted or initiated by AHS with respect to the CSF procurements or the selected proponents. In other words, any paperwork that you have with regard to this, please send them to us. I don't know if that came with a directive to not keep copies for yourself. But all the evidence you have of any wrongdoing, just send it to us. You do not need to be investigating this anymore, and you do not need to be doing any due diligence anymore. We've got this now. Okay. On January 2nd, 2025, Mentzelopoulos spoke with the Deputy Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, who told her that his minister, the Honourable Dan Williams, was, quote, very concerned about the AHS internal investigation and forensic audit, including the investigation of, quote, our good friend JP, JP being a reference to Prasad. The minister was apparently concerned that the investigation could lead to potential connections between various government officials and Sam Raish and MH Care Medical. The deputy minister asked Mentzelopoulos if Alberta Health and Andre, meaning Tremblay, were saying, quote, to back off and tamp stuff down. Mentzelopoulos advised the deputy minister that she had been directed to wind down the investigation, but she was becoming increasingly concerned she would face retaliation as a result of having initiated the investigation and forensic audit in the first place. Mentzelopoulos was concerned about how Minister Williams had heard about the internal AHS investigation and was told the information had been shared by, quote, Nicole in Minister LaGrange's office. On Monday, January 6, 2025, Mentzelopoulos wrote to Assistant Deputy Minister Nickerson to follow up on his letter of December 23, 2024. The January 6, 2025 letter confirmed that the external investigation and audit had been closed down as ADM Nickerson had directed. The letter also indicated that the first batch of the AHS due diligence records and related materials were being sent over to ADM Nickerson, with the remaining records to follow in due course. Mentzelopoulos then advised ADM Nickerson that A, the volume of materials and the complexity of the investigation had not allowed AHS to draw specific conclusions prior to the investigation and audit being shut down per ADM Nickerson's December 23rd, 2024 directive, but that AHS had identified, quote, a range of necessary information that was still required from the CSS as part of the AHS due diligence process in order to provide, quote, for a robust procurement process. B, AHS did not yet have services agreements for the CSFs in Central Zone or South Zone, and that a commitment to enter into a contract was still, quote, conditional on a variety of factors being met to AHS's satisfaction, including but not limited to the contractor providing AHS with the still outstanding information, quote, in response to all reasonable due diligence requests regarding the facility, the land, and the provision of the services in a timely manner. C, AHS took the position that the selected Central Zone CSF contractor had still, quote, not fulfilled the conditions under the letter of commitment and allow AHS to enter into a contract, and that the AHS had not been unable to enter into a letter of commitment for the South Zone CSF contractor due to outstanding due diligence issues. And D, Mentzelopoulos and AHS officials were scheduled to brief the Auditor General on January 10th, 2025. The next day, on January 7th, 2025, Minister LaGrange met with AHS Board of Directors and demanded that they terminate Mentzelopoulos. Okay, so the minister went to the board and said, the board, you need to fire her. However, the AHS board refused the minister's demand. Shortly after this meeting, Tremblay contacted AHS staff and ordered that they canceled the January 10th, 2025 meeting with the Auditor General. So they really don't want this meeting with the Auditor General to take place. Fire her. No, can't fire her? Okay, then cancel the meeting. Mentzelopoulos received a Zoom meeting invite from AHS Board Chair Angela Fong to attend an 8:30 a.m. meeting on Wednesday, January 8th, 2025. Fong and Mentzelopoulos were the only invitees for that meeting. On January 8th, 2025, Mentzelopoulos signed on to the Zoom meeting and noted that Chair Fong had not signed on. However, Mentzelopoulos saw that Tremblay and Connie Webster, AHS Executive Director of Human Resources and BP, I don't know what the BP is, and Ability Management, were signed on to the meeting. Tremblay then advised that Fong would not be attending. He told Mentzelopoulos that she was being terminated effective immediately. Tremblay then left the meeting. Mentzelopoulos asked Webster how the ongoing investigation that may ultimately involve the RCMP would be managed. Webster did not know. Mentzelopoulos also asked if AHS would be providing any resources for personal protection, given that the termination was linked to the investigation and forensic audit. Webster could not answer the question. So this Tremblay guy comes in on a meeting that he's not even supposed to be on, because that they get her on under false pretenses, says that you're fired, leaves the meeting, and leaves this Webster person holding the bag, and she has no information. Nice guy, this Andre Tremblay. Wow. Gee, horrible bosses. My God. As far as is known to Mentzelopoulos, the AHS Board of Directors had not passed a motion to terminate her employment with AHS, and the Executive Chair Fong had not authorized the termination either. I would deduce that, given that she wasn't even on the meeting, that it was apparently her that was calling. Wow. Accordingly, Tremblay had no legal authority on behalf of AHS to terminate Mentzelopoulos, which is probably why he did it in and out and then left before he could say too much, I would assume. Health Minister LaGrange in Alberta Health then made a public announcement advising that Tremblay would be the interim president and CEO of AHS. How convenient. Fire the person whose job you're going to take. Go. LaGrange might be a little more ruthless than her outward appearance would lead one to believe. That's pretty cold-blooded. I'm just saying. Wow. News media reported that AHS had deferred all questions from CBC News to the government, and the provincial government would not confirm whether or not Mentzelopoulos was fired, leaving people to guess whether Mentzelopoulos had been terminated for just cause. Right. Leave that suspicion out there. Right? Don't say anything. Oh, maybe she did something. Yeah. I'm sure Minister LaGrange and everybody, Marshall Smith and all these people, were quite happy with, would be quite happy if that's what the public thought. On January 20th, 2025, Mentzelopoulos raised the above concerns and issues with AHS and understands that the AHS Board of Directors then learned the details of the matter set out above. On January 30th, 2025, Minister LaGrange then dismissed the AHS Board of Directors, and in particular the directors who had supported Mentzelopoulos and the AHS investigation and forensic audit initiatives, and installed Tremblay as the official administrator of AHS. Wow. As a result, Minister LaGrange now has complete control over the terms and conditions of chartered surgical facility contracts going forward, as well as control over the AHS investigation and forensic audit into the CSF contracts, including rates, the apparently unfulfilled MHCare purchase order and supply agreement for the children's acetaminophen, and the potential conflicts of interest around the CSF negotiations, and the $70 million children's acetaminophen purchase order and supply agreement between AHS and MHCare. Basically saying she owns it all now. So, as a result of these actions, AHS or Minister LaGrange or either of them have terminated or purported to terminate. The public announcement has made this distinction potentially moot in practical terms. Mentzelopoulos, in an arbitrary, capricious, callous, high-handed, and bad faith manner, Mentzelopoulos was abruptly terminated via a misrepresented Zoom meeting by someone purporting to act for AHS, but without actual authority to do so. As a result, Mentzelopoulos carrying out her duties and obligations to AHS and the public interest, and in the effort to prevent Mentzelopoulos from complying with her contractual obligations to AHS, to interfere with investigation and forensic audit, and to prevent Mentzelopoulos from meeting with the Auditor General. Further, the purported termination of the employment contract on January 8, 2025 was very likely done at the behest and direction of Minister LaGrange, and in circumstances that were not lawful or contractually compliant with the employment agreement. Minister LaGrange or her agent Tremblay stepped into the shoes of the AHS Board of Directors and or the AHS Board Chair, and then purported to terminate Mentzelopoulos in bad faith and without actual authority in terms of the AHS Board or Board Chair. Further, the actions of Minister LaGrange on January 7th and 8th, 2025 undercut the authority and reputation of Mentzelopoulos in her capacity as President and CEO of AHS, publicly embarrassed her, and damaged her future employment prospects. In addition, Minister LaGrange has been making negative public statements about Mentzelopoulos since January 8th, 2025, and implying that Mentzelopoulos was not meeting expectations at AHS. I'm guessing she wasn't. If you had some type of conspiracy little plan to funnel more money to people than they deserved and to people who didn't even deserve it because they couldn't get through the RFP process, and she would not cooperate with that, well, then, yeah, I guess she would not be meeting expectations. But the problem wasn't that she wasn't meeting them. The problem were your expectations. It would seem. Wow. So, yeah, okay. Whew. So trying to destroy her, clearly. Implying that Mentzelopoulos was not meeting expectations at AHS and may have been terminated as a result. These statements are completely at odds with the statements Minister LaGrange had made directly to Mentzelopoulos in December 2024. These statements have caused further damage and harm to Mentzelopoulos and her mitigation efforts and to her professional reputation. Particulars of these statements include, but are not limited to, statements made in the Globe and Mail reported February 11th, 2025 that stated, quote, Jessie Ramsden, Miss LaGrange's spokeswoman, said after Alberta's government learned of concerns surrounding chartered surgical facilities, it repeatedly asked AHS for documentation to substantiate the claims. Quote, it was extremely concerning that no substantive information and documentation had been provided to the government after nearly 8 months of requesting it, Ms. Ramsden said in a statement. And that is why Minister Adriana LaGrange issued the directive in December to compel AHS to share all details related to CSF contracts and contracting with Alberta Health. Was it appropriate for Minister LaGrange to be asking for details of the investigation during 8 months as the investigation was going on and underway? That matters. Because if it was not okay to be asking for that, then it's no wonder that she was not receiving that, right? Just saying. The above statement falsely implies that Mentzelopoulos was not cooperating with the Minister LaGrange and that Alberta government. However, the statement is demonstrably false in particular. A, the concerns about the CSFs were first raised with Alberta Health by Mentzelopoulos and by her. The concerns about the chartered surgical facilities were first raised with Alberta Health by Mentzelopoulos in her August 29, 2024 letter to Tremblay, just over 4 months before Mentzelopoulos was terminated. And at that time, the concerns involved primarily ASG. The October 1, 2024 draft letter sent to Darren Headley then expanded the concerns specifically to other CSFs. B, the external forensic audit was initiated in November 2024 after concerns arose around Prasad, MH Care, and AHS, being just over 2 months before Mentzelopoulos was terminated. C, the so-called repeated requests for information apparently by the government never happened, and the first official request for information came on or about December 9th, 2024, when members of Tremblay's office asked Mentzelopoulos for an update on the AHS work around the CSF contract management. D, Mentzelopoulos made all reasonable efforts to keep Minister LaGrange and Alberta Health updated as the investigations progressed as set out above. And E, the December 2024 directive was clearly an effort to shut down the AHS investigation during the external forensic audit initiated during November 2024. So an effort to shut down the audit before it could complete its work. Further, and in the alternative, the ongoing and unilateral removal of key aspects of Mentzelopoulos' duties and responsibilities in October 2024 through December 2024, and the manner of the purported termination of her employment amounted to a repudiation of her employment agreement and an inability for the defendants, or either them, to rely on the termination provisions in the employment agreement. In the result, Mentzelopoulos is entitled to the compensation owed over the balance of the 4-year contract. Further, it is the organizing principle of good faith that AHS, in carrying out its own performance of the contract, should have appropriate regard to the legitimate contractual interests of Mentzelopoulos. This organizing principle of good faith manifests itself through the existing doctrines about the types of situations and relationships in which the law requires parties to engage in honest, candid, forthright, and reasonable contractual performance. A breach of this duty, which has clearly and unequivocally occurred here, triggers a claim for aggravated damages. Further, and in the alternative, Minister LaGrange has induced and directed AHS to breach its contract and its obligations of good faith with Mentzelopoulos by directing Tremblay to terminate Mentzelopoulos in violation of the employment agreement. Minister LaGrange unlawfully interfered with the economic interests of Mentzelopoulos. As a result, Mentzelopoulos is claiming damages for the loss of the contractual benefits she would have received had the contract been performed. But for the actions of Minister LaGrange and her agent Tremblay, the employment contract would have paid Mentzelopoulos $1.7 million in base salary, plus benefits over its remaining term, and would have avoided the public media spectacle that occurred on January 8th, 2025. Remedy sought. Mentzelopoulos seeks the following remedies: judgment for pay in lieu of notice in the amount of $583,443 less applicable income tax. Judgment for bad faith, aggravated, and or punitive damages in the amount of $1,116,557. In the alternative, judgment for damages for breach of contract in the sum currently estimated at $1.7 million, less applicable income tax being the balance of the compensation owed under the employment agreement, or such further and other amount as this honorable court deems appropriate. Such further and another remedies as this honorable court deems appropriate, and D, costs and prejudgment interests. Wow. That is some juicy stuff. I'm a personally very, 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 very big believer in don't get mad, get everything. And she is going after everything. And this could take down the minister, and this could end up taking down the government. This is very, very bad. If everything alleged here is actually true, and considering the amount of receipts that she has kept, a good public servant always keeps copious amounts of receipts, and notes, especially contemporaneous notes about discussions, and conversations and agreements and threats, veiled or overt. It would seem that she has a pretty solid case here. And it's very interesting that in there, just casually mentioned, but being asked to fire other people for this, what they've been saying in public on their own free time, like Nate Pike, and then just all of these the players in all of these various suits and whatnot all seem to have some connections to some way, to each other in some way. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm also not a big believer in too many coincidences. There are some people who are in trouble. There are some people who are in trouble here. Wow. So stay tuned. Hopefully we will have Nate Pike with us very soon, next week. And hopefully next week. And we'll be able to get into it. But inflating contracts, threats, intimidation, all these calls, removing her duties slowly one by one. And now that this is going down, now trying to sully her reputation or being parsimonious with the truth in very strategic ways so as to create the impression that someone is somehow lacking when all the evidence in there states that someone was extremely meticulous and thorough in how they did their job. A very, very dedicated public servant. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Glad to have you back with us, Mr. Grizzly.
Hey.
I've talked a lot. So if you, do you have any thoughts about all of this?
Somebody's going to prison, I hope. Somebody should go to prison. I hope Nate is able to sue the pants off of them. Because
this little
what they're trying to do to him, and discovery should show that they are guilty as sin.
That little tidbit in there about you need a CEO of the AHS, like she's like really at the top of the pyramid there. Because this paramedic who's like nowhere near her on the reporting structure, you need to fire him.
Yeah, that's overstepping.
I have a feeling that little tidbit in this statement of claim is going to serve Nate very, very, very well in his particular defense. I'm not a lawyer, but I have a feeling that revelation will be very, very handy.
Well, I think
someone to settle.
Smith and a number of her cabinet members and perhaps the CEO are going to pay dearly for this, and they should.
They need to step aside. They need to step aside. Like all political convention says that you step aside.
You remember this?
Randy Blestino stepped aside. Remember?
Mm-hmm. Oh yes,
Randy Blestino stepped aside because we're wondering about his indigeneity and whether some guy who he used to work with did something or used his name for proper benefit. This is like the chief of staff and stuff coming from the premier's office with inflating contracts. You have to step aside, right? If Randy Blestino has had to step aside, you have to step aside.
Yeah, I mean, remember what Naheed Nenshi said just last week. You need to step aside. If you knew about this, you need to step aside. If you didn't know about this, you need to step aside. Period. Because you're implicated, no matter what. You're guilty of sin, and you're going to pay. And the people of Alberta, they're ones who don't know what the hell is going on. So they'll continue to defend the UCP and Danielle Smith, and that's fine. They don't have the knowledge or the information, so I don't get mad at them. I don't. But when I present the knowledge, when I present the information, and they still defend her, I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you defend somebody who has committed crimes? This is criminal activity. You cannot, it's indefensible. She needs to pay. And we're not the only ones saying this. We're not. And many conservative commentators are saying the same thing. Because they're like, oh, no. This is no. Yesterday I caught a few minutes of a live stream from his name, David Creighton. He used to be a reporter for the CBC. He was now he's got a podcast, and it's a successful podcast. But I was listening to what he had to say, and I think he's on. I'm going to say the way he talks, the way he comported himself, and the misinformation he was spreading would lead me to believe that he might be getting paid in rubles. If you watch yesterday's podcast, you can find it. I'll send you a link later.
Okay.
I don't think you'd disagree with me. So we have people actively in this country spreading mis and disinformation to rile up people to earn money. Look, we're trying to grow our show. We're trying to create more awareness. We're trying to get more viewers and subscribers. And there's no secret about that. But we're not going to do it by lying to you. We're not going to do it by telling you falsehoods. We're not going to do it by selling our souls.
We do it by going to actually going to read the court filing.
Correct. We do things truthful, above board, and fact-based.
We will spend an hour and 15 minutes reading a court filing to you.
As you just did.
Because you need to know how it went down.
Well, it's absurd that we're looking at something like this today in 2025, that they could have this level of corruption so transparent, because they're not good at this. They're not good at this.
They're terrible.
I mean, look, I'm going to steal the line from Batman: The Dark Knight, from the character played by Heath Ledger of the Joker. This town needs a better class of criminal.
Right?
You've got people who are in prison going like, really? Like, really?
So I'm thinking of that play Arsenic and Old Lace again that I did. Like, where it's like they're at the end, like this, like the German guy turns around and says, wait a minute. We traveled all over the world and we like all these schemes and plots and running from the law and whatnot like this. And your two aunties just stayed here and they did just as well as you did.
Yeah.
What the hell, man? So, David Kleiman-Haga, who we love, and we wish we could get him back on our show. You keep on putting out the invitation. He's so good. He's so good. But my God, this man's got his hands full right now. His latest.
Yes.
Here. This is good. If the UCP hopes to turn the page on the dodgy contract scandal, someone's going to have to fall on their sword.
Mm.
Which virgin are you going to be throwing into the volcano, Danielle? The most obvious candidate to walk the plank to serve the premier would be Health Minister Adriana LaGrange. If Danielle Smith hopes to turn the page on the dodgy contract scandal that has been dogging her since the former CEO of Alberta Health Services challenged the United Conservative Party government's narrative about the circumstances that led to her dismissal on January 8th, Alberta Premier is going to have to act fast. Well, she does like acting fast. Quickly. Expeditiously. Athana Mentzelopoulos says she was fired, quote, in an arbitrary, capricious, callous, high-handed, and bad faith manner for properly carrying out her duty to investigate high-level interference with overpriced contracts. It's less than 2 weeks till the legislature is scheduled to sit again, and with copies of the statement of claim in Miss Mentzelopoulos' $1.7 million wrongful dismissal suit now circulating widely throughout the province and being read from coast to coast to coast by your favorite beaver. The situation is only going to get worse for the government and its insiders if someone can't be found to fall on their sword or be pushed. Miss Mentzelopoulos' statement of claim is a corker. If it were between hardcovers, it could be a bestseller, even though it's only 17 pages long. According to her account in the document, some of the lines she remembers being told could have come out of the mouth of Tony Soprano. Of course, her allegations haven't been proved in a court of law, but they make eye-popping reading, and as a former deputy minister in 2 provincial governments who obviously had the wit to hang on to her receipts, she would likely make a formidable witness in any court proceeding. Face it, you don't get to be a senior civil servant in any Canadian government by being a dope. The same can't necessarily be said about candidates for elected office.
Yeah, no kidding.
The obvious candidate to walk the plank to save the premier would be Health Minister Adriana LaGrange, if only because the scandal unfolded on her watch. No public mea culpas would be required for the government to start plausibly diverting attention from the still unfolding drama. But just spitballing here, what if Miss LaGrange doesn't want to take one for the team? She could turn out to be another formidable woman for the premier to get on the wrong side of. As I mentioned in the note there, wow, Adriana seems to have the ability to be a little ruthless there, as we saw, as I was reading that statement. So the opposition NDP certainly thinks Miss LaGrange must go. Today, the premier must fire the health minister, Alberta NDP leader Naheed Nenshi said in a statement yesterday. The former AHS CEO alleges that Alberta Minister Adriana LaGrange, with the Premier's office aware of the matter, directed the AHS board to fire her. Mr. Nenshi said, noting that Ms. LaGrange is referenced 24 times in the statement of claim. When the board refused, the minister bypassed their authority and had her deputy minister terminated. When the board refused, the minister bypassed their authority and had her deputy minister terminate her instead. Comparing the actions of the UCP to those of a banana republic, Mr. Nenshi said of the circumstances described in the statement of claim, this would be unbelievable political interference if true. This is not how democracies function, and this would be corrupt. The alternative for the Premier might be to try to brazen it out. This has worked for Danielle Smith before more often than it hasn't, but like crossing the floor of the legislature to join the Progressive Conservatives in 2014, it could be a risky roll of the dice. In 4 Blue Sky posts yesterday, former Alberta Medical Association President Paul Parks debunked the government's claim Ms. Mentzelopoulos' dismissal was intended to ensure a smooth transition from Alberta Health Services to UCP's new acute care. Ms. Mentzelopoulos had been hired as executive director of the AMA shortly before she was, quote, handpicked by the Premier to lead AHS, Dr. Parks recalled. Quote, I met directly with the Minister of Health, who told me they had to have Athana, as the plan was that she would guide the refocusing and then ultimately head the new acute care organization. She's so good. She's so good. We got to have her. We got to have her. She was too good. Too damn good at her job, wasn't she? Well, you wanted the best. You got the best. Then you didn't appreciate having the best around. Quote, the plan was to be long-term, and the minister offered these facts as an apology for taking Athana from the AMA while AMA was trying to develop a working relationship with the government. Pretending the firing was for a smooth transition is ridiculous, especially given the acting CEO of the acute care org wasn't even working yet, Dr. Parks continued. Having an acting CEO who does the job from the side of his DM desk cannot possibly ever be the plan. Judging from the allegations in Ms. Mentzelopoulos' statement of claim, the UCP government has an unhealthy obsession with opposition on social media. Here's one example. Quote, during the summer 2024, Mentzelopoulos was again contacted by Marshall Smith, who advised Mentzelopoulos that powerful people were upset and angry about the Twitter feed of an AHS employee, Nate Pike, AHS paramedic, who was apparently posting criticism of the government while on duty. Smith alleged that a complaint and lawsuit were going to be filed against Mr. Pike. Mentzelopoulos asked Smith if he was trying to tell her that AHS had to fire Mr. Pike. Smith replied that Mr. Pike was your employee and that you're going to look very bad and there would be consequences. Mentzelopoulos advised Smith that she would not fire Mr. Pike, but after the discussion, she contacted AHS leadership and advised them to speak to Mr. Pike about not tweeting while at work. That's a quote from the statement, right? Now, again, this is back to David Clement-Haga. Now, again, we have to remember that this has not been proved in court, and Mr. Smith, the former chief of staff to Premier Smith, to whom he is not related, has said he will be filing a statement of defense soon. Quote, MH Care Medical and Sam Raish have since filed a $6 million defamation lawsuit against Nate Pike, among other defendants, the statement of defense said in a footnote. The statement of claim also says Ms. Mentzelopoulos was pressured to terminate purported critics of government employed by AHS, including one who had liked a tweet that annoyed the government. So one just for liking a tweet. Another example, later during the summer, Marshall Smith again spoke to Mentzelopoulos, this time about another Twitter feed called Hansard the Cat that was apparently critical of the government. Smith outlined a number of steps, including private detectives, lawyers, and apparently hackers that were being used to discover the identity of the person posting under the name. So, David Clement-Haga definitely drawing attention to what was important in there. So, yeah, things not going well for her.
Not at all. And just as well, she brought it upon herself.
Yeah.
This is because a direct result of her own actions.
Yeah.
I mean, I still can't believe she remained in power after the Arthur Pawlowski.
I know.
Like, what the hell is going on, right?
Yep.
We're in crazy time.
Yes. And now LaGrange knows that she's next, right? Clearly, because, again, there's no loyalty among these people. They'll throw anybody under the bus very quickly, right? Just so, yeah, we this should spark an internal civil war within the movement.
Mm-hmm. I think it will.
I have a feeling. I have a feeling that Mr. LaGrange is not someone who goes quietly.
I get the vibe that is the case. I want to bring something up here. We're going to switch to provincial politics here in Ontario right now. This is a statement from Natasha Doyle-Merrick, NDP candidate for Eglinton Lawrence. Yes. It's for immediate release. After much reflection, I have made the difficult decision to withdraw my candidacy in this provincial election. The Lawrence Heights community is my home. It is a place full of talented, intelligent, and ambitious people who deserve to be heard and not used in political elections every 4 years for votes. They deserve political leaders who care and listen to their needs in the same way they listen to other constituents in Eglinton Lawrence riding. So many people in Eglinton Lawrence are eager to change. They want a candidate to be elected that is dedicated to drive change for all communities. My decision to run in this election was because I wanted to amplify the voices of community members who are currently being ignored by the incumbent. This election is crucial because the past 7 years, Doug Ford and the Ontario Conservatives have been absent and ineffective, showing zero interest in delivering the support all residents in Eglinton Lawrence need to thrive. I got into politics for the people, and it would be a disservice for me to keep my name on the ballot, knowing that the race in Eglinton Lawrence is pivotal. Many residents cannot afford another 4 years of an Ontario Conservative government. This is why I've decided it was best to no longer be in this election, as it is clear that it is a two-party contest between the Ontario Liberals and Ontario Conservatives. To everyone who has supported my campaign, thank you, and I hope you all understand the decision was not easy, but one that had to be made to ensure Eglinton Lawrence is well represented. This movement has never been about one person. It's about all of us coming together to fight for a better future. Let's keep pushing for real change. Now that, my friends, is the kind of politician you want. One who puts their community, their constituency, above themselves, because they knew the vote split between the Liberals and the NDP would get another Conservative elected.
Yep.
So what she did was just step aside. She said, I'm stepping aside to avoid a vote split. I mean, knowing that she won't win and knowing that it will give the Conservatives a seat because the vote will be split between NDP and Liberal, and the Liberal would get more votes, apparently, as I understand it, for that riding. I think this is the best thing to do in her case. I think it's the smart move because he recognizes the danger that Doug Ford and his regressive Conservative Party has over the people of Ontario. I mean, we can't, without even getting into the long list of corruption. I mean, come on. The man uses the OPP as his personal chopper service.
Indeed. Now, this has happened in another riding as well, but not for the same reasons. If people who are in Windsor West will also learn that their Liberal candidate, Mo Chahab, has dropped out as well. But they say it's due to a family emergency that just came out. So a lot of people are hoping that this will keep happening.
Mm-hmm.
But there will be no movement for that. I'm afraid to burst the bubble because I think today or tomorrow is the last day that somebody could drop off and have the name removed from the ballot and maybe replace the name. So if anybody did it past today, their name would still appear on the ballot and the votes would still be split. So it's unfortunately not going to be the start of a movement, unfortunately.
No.
But yes, this particular person definitely deserves to be commended for that.
Doing the right thing at the right time. She is not putting herself ahead of her constituency. She is not putting her. She doesn't have such a huge ego that she recognizes, you know what? It's better if I step aside. That is being humble, and that is being real, and that is something we need a great deal more of.
Indeed. Now, if you're following the Ontario election campaign, there is a first debate set for tonight. It'll be the party leaders are going to be meeting in North Bay, and it'll be a debate focusing specifically on the region. Healthcare in particular, the issue of addictions is a big issue in the North. So hopefully the parties that have been talking about healthcare during the course of this election will have a leg up. Still no word on whether or not Doug Ford is actually going to show up.
He probably won't.
Yeah.
He won't let any of his MPs or MPPs debate, so why would he?
I know. And this is a big deal. Healthcare is going to be a really big deal because the Ontario Medical Association says that half of the physicians in the region in the North will retire within the next 5 years. So, this is not a small thing. On the Liberal leadership front, just a couple little tidbits here. Mark Carney today will be out vowing to incentivize prefabricated, or was yesterday, prefabricating modular home building to help tackle the housing affordability crisis. Meanwhile, Chrystia Freeland had a plan to bring more doctors to Canada using some incentives. So she's thinking about incentives in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. I think $300,000 for doctors and $200,000 for nurses. to try to get them to come back, particularly from the United States, to practice here. And then a couple of other incentives, for example, subsidizing their medical school loans and other things like that. So it says here, the plan would offer doctors $200,000 and nurses $100,000 after 5 years. Ottawa would pay off a portion of U.S. student loans they have as well, $300,000 for each returning doctor and $50,000 for each nurse. Loans transferred to Canada would be made interest-free. So that was a part of Christian Freeland's plan with that. Also, it seems that the debates have been set. They will be February 24th and 25th in Montreal, French and English. And it would seem that Ruby Dalla had asked to be able to have a translator for the French language debate, which is something she was denied, because that was yes, that's not the point. So she's going to still be on stage. She will have prepared notes in French for her opening and closing statement, and probably won't be saying much otherwise while she's there, which again makes me why? Why is she still a candidate?
I saw a stream of people trying to defend her for that, and they're like, no, that's not how. We're not going to make a special dispensation for somebody because you don't actually meet the qualifications.
This is not an accommodation, like, for example, teleprompter with caps, screen caps, so that you can read what's going on because you don't hear very well, or maybe you had a stroke or something. This is like John Fetterman had. This is, I don't speak French well enough to communicate well. I'm sorry, but that's not something that requires an accommodation in a French language debate. That's like saying, like this, sorry, I'm in the Olympics in the high jump, but I don't actually know how to jump high. Can somebody give me a boost?
Well,
it's not go over the bar.
The threads I followed on this, the people defending her think she should have this. Some people were saying, well, Mark Carney doesn't speak French. I'm like, okay.
He speaks well enough.
Gaslight us. Stop with the gaslighting. My God, I've seen him speak French. He was just in Quebec the other day. Somebody approached him, and he said to them in French, "You should speak to me in French." We're here in, was he in Shawinigan? I can't remember where he was.
Yes, with one of the rebel reporters who was a francophone.
Yes, said you should speak to me in French. We're in Quebec. We're in Shawinigan, and it was a francophone reporter for the Rebel.
Yes,
with a very thick French Quebecois accent. By the way, it wasn't mistaking.
No.
And he said, speak to me in French, because he is fluently bilingual. Is his French Quebecois? Je ne sais pas. But does it matter? No, because the people of Quebec approve of his speaking.
Yes. Does it roll off the tongue easily? Does it take longer to get words out? Will he make a couple of mistakes? Yeah, sure. But he's not the one asking for an interpreter to participate in a debate. People defending Ruby Dalla. Well, what about Mark Carney? Not what about the subject of the conversation is your girl, not our boy.
Well, speaking of Mark Carney, I have a clip from Doug Giesbrecht. You should see this. This is good. You'll like this.
Currently, 80% of our capital spending, or spend in the military on equipment, machinery, other aspects, not non-personnel expenditures, goes to the United States. Okay, goes to the United States, contracts to the United States, the existing relations with the United States. We need to spend more of that money here in Canada. We need to be ready to spend that money here in Canada. If we can accelerate that spend, more of it in Canada, securing Canada, building Canadian jobs, we absolutely will do that. I'm not going to make a promise in advance without going into detail, and I don't see a great deal of detail in those other accelerated timelines. I'm not going to make a promise in advance that either runs the risk of wasting Canadian taxpayers' dollars or sending those taxpayer dollars to the country that is currently.
So I'm guessing that's about the 2% spend. And why aren't you going to do it faster? Because he promised 2030 when some people are promising 2027. So yeah, because dude, I want to spend that money at home.
Yeah.
Thanks. Especially considering that, the people, why would I give if I'm going to boost all this military spending by this much over a short period of time, why would I send all that money to people who are threatening to annex us? There's a reason why Prime Minister Trudeau had us create a whole shipbuilding capacity all over again to be able to build those polar icebreakers here.
Correct.
Rather than just buying them from someone else. Yes, it took a long time. Yes, but now we have
Doesn't
the
happen
capacity to
overnight.
build ships for ourselves and for other people now.
Well,
especially
and there's
for other people who might be needing them a lot more soon.
just consider the massive amount of job creation in that alone,
Mhm.
right? Yes, it was expensive. Yes, it took time. But, you know, when you build something, you start with the foundation and you make sure the foundation is really solid so that the building doesn't collapse on itself. So this is how it begins. You have to invest the money into the nation, into businesses that will build jobs and build products that Canadians can use and we can sell around the world.
And that's what this Prime Minister has done with AI, with the EV, putting us in the core of
Batteries,
EV,
yeah.
batteries and
Tires,
manufacturing.
don't forget the tire agreement, because
Yeah.
EVs require specific type of. You can't just go to Canadian Tire and throw those kind
Yep.
of tires on your car. They won't last
Yep.
because they need to be specifically designed for an electric vehicle because of the weight of the battery.
Mhm.
It's quite a bit heavier. Now, it's evenly distributed weight, but it's
Yep.
quite a bit heavier.
Yep. And also into vaccines and virologics with the first mRNA plant outside of wherever it was originally being here in Canada. Again, and all these extra trade deals that we have to diversify our trade, he's set us up well. Now we just need somebody to keep walking through the door, and that's why we can't elect the Conservatives, because they're not going to do that for us.
No.
They're just going to keep on doing more, want to integrate us even more with the United States, and that is not the path forward now.
No, and
Mr.
as
Grizzly.
evidenced by, I just want to add one more thing, and then we can wrap it
Yep.
up. You just said, it's not the path forward by tying ourselves to the United States. Well, are you familiar with Adam Kinzinger? He's a former
yes. Absolutely.
Republican congressman. Well, I'm going to
The
put
good one.
something on the screen and read, because it's like, wow. Europe needs to back Ukraine with everything, then freeze Trump out, make him absolutely unimportant.
Mm.
Former Republican congressman.
Yep.
And
But that's you have to do it.
dead on. Yes.
You
That's
have
what
to
needs
have the
to
same
take
balls
place.
that Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia had way back when they said, we're getting off that damn Russian grid. And it's going to cost us, but heck. Or Germany
to
had a
do it.
couple of years ago. So, yep. You know what? You want us to freeze in the dark one winter? That's fine like this, but we'll make other arrangements and we'll find a way. And we're going to have to do that.
Well,
All right.
and the talk of Canada joining the EU is really beginning to ramp up.
We should.
And it's easy for us to do it. We share a land border with a European country, and we are 20 kilometers off the coast of France.
Yeah. And plus, we're involved in the Commonwealth and La Francophonie. Like, come on.
So, yeah, it's time. It's time.
It's time. And we got the largest Ukrainian diaspora outside of Ukraine.
Correct.
Come on.
So, yeah.
Right.
Let's tie ourselves to Europe, because there's more countries to deal with, there's more money to be made, and we don't have to suckle at the teat of our southern neighbor who suddenly, under the guise of a narcissist, convicted felon rapist, decided that we need to be annexed by him. And when I see people say, well, think of the benefits, like, there's not a single benefit.
There's no benefit.
Not a one. There is not one single benefit to a Canadian citizen to become the 51st state. Not one. Cite me one.
People,
you can't.
and people keep on talking about, like, oh, they're going to let us vote. Do you think he's going to let us vote? Look at Puerto Rico.
He'd make us Puerto Rico. You'd get no say in it.
Come on.
No
You
say.
got global putting out these things. So, like, well, let's explore what it would take for that to happen. How about, here's this other way, global, who's also like post media, part of the boycott. Like, how about we pretend that you didn't even say that?
Yes. Yeah, I saw
and we
that.
don't entertain. How about we do not entertain this topic that you are like this, and instead you tell us why this is bullshit. Instead of start exploring how this could happen if it would. No, we're not interested. There's no audience for that. All right.
None.
Do we have a show, Mr. Grizzly?
We do indeed, sir.
All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you loved our extra juicy episode. Squirt, squirt. We loved making it for you. I always get a little bit of schadenfreude when I see Conservatives going down. Can't help it. I just can't help it. Because They earn your trust by lying to you. So when they get caught in the lie and they start going down, it's always going to make me happy. It
I
always
got
is.
two doozy Easter eggs when we come back after this. They're just, oh
All
my
right.
God, you're not going to.
So remember, sharing is caring, and word of mouth is priceless. So tell your peeps and poops all about us. It really matters. If you'd like to subscribe to our show, to our podcasts, and I saw Mr. Grizzly's got a few up again. So hopefully that means
There'll
that
be more
all the
today.
tech stuff is working.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've fixed all the issues, but it's a slow process. But I am getting it done today. So.
No, I just saw them pop up and says, "Oh my God, the tech's working! Yay!" So I was very happy. So please scan that QR code. That will bring you right there. And if you click subscribe, they will come directly to you. For those who are listening, well, by the time you hear this, they will already have been uploaded. So, but we apologize for having so many of them all in one shot. When you see them, all of them, oh my God, there's a lot of them all of a sudden. It's just we got held up, but we were doing shows. We didn't leave you. We just
had tech issues. We had tech issues, and I've got most of it fixed. There's still the issue of, even though if you search for us on the Audible only version, you might come up with something that has a blank screen and absolutely no content. I'm like, I cannot delete that page. Yeah. But there's nothing there. There's no content. There's no image. There's nothing. If you look again, you'll find us. It's the True North Eager Beaver Main, MAIN, in big block capital letters. Right. That's where we are.
All right. So if you scan that QR code or go to our podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver, hyphen between each one of those words, sponsored by the Ray Girl, of course, click subscribe. When we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. Now, if you'd like to help us in other ways, then you need to get down to our YouTube page, True North Eager Beaver Media, and Kits, Cassie, and Elaine will be there, welcoming you and encouraging you to flick our buttons, like, share, and subscribe. If you give them a little click, it helps them it helps us with the algorithm. And well, you know what? We really appreciate it when you do that. Now, if you would like to help us in yet another way, kits and cubs, because it's Valentine's Day, and maybe you'd like to show your favorite beaver and your favorite grizzly a little love, get some mood lighting, pull the curtains as you go to our coffee page. Maybe give us a little tip. Show us some love. Hey, Beaver. Hey, Grizzly. Thank you for showing up every morning. There you go. Just a little something for you. A little hot chocolate for our favorite hot chocolate. Hey. Or, of course, a nice Guinness for Mr. Grizzly. I think he's earned one. Yes. So if you would like to do that, coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, all in one word, that you will find our tip jar, also known as the Emergency Hydration Fund. And if you leave a little bit of coinage in there, you will earn our undying gratitude, and you will instantly become 17.8% more interesting at parties. Informed people are very sexy and interesting.
17.8, that's a strange number.
Our lab gets the most precise measurements.
Fair enough.
That's how you know it's real. It's the 0.8. Real science. Yeah. And of course, if you want to buy Canadian, because our coffee page works through PayPal, which is the Tech Bros, then just send us something, a direct transfer to truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com. That's our address, and we accept direct transfers if you would like to deal with a Canadian bank rather than a foreign-owned tech company, because tech companies don't seem to be on our side lately. But no, that's up to you to make that choice.
The tech bro oligarchy.
Yes, the CE bros. All right. Because democracy is something that you do, you have a Liberal leadership race in Quebec, so please find out about your candidates there. There's the Ontario race going on. Remember, you can vote really early by going to your returning office. If you want to vote by mail, remember, you have to register to do that relatively soon. There will be 3 days of advance voting. I think they start on the 20th. But if you are voting by mail, please remember that your vote needs to be in by 6 p.m. on election day. So don't mail it on election day, but before. And your deadline to apply for it is by 6 p.m. on the 21st. So you have yet another week. All right. And then, of course, you have the Liberal leadership race. Of course, if you have the right to vote in it, to pay attention because lots of important things are going on. Mr. Grizzly, do you have some words of wisdom, my friend?
You know what? Because it's been a hell of a week of news. Here's what I'm going to say. And this is, I guess, for National Capital residents mostly, but anybody else who has the ability to do so, get out and enjoy this winter weather. Get out on the canal, go for a skate, play some pickup hockey on an outdoor rink, go snowshoeing, go cross-country skiing, get downhill skiing, get some winter activities in while we have the snow and the cold to do it, because over the last few years, winter sports have really taken a beating for outdoor winter sports. Get out there and do it. It'll be good for your heart, your mind, and your soul. And let's
show
not
winter
forget,
some love.
It's great great for the body too.
Yeah, it's Valentine's Day. Show old man Winter a little love.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Grizzly, please. Well, kids, it could be a tough world out there, so please be kind to and gentle with yourself. Mr. Grizzly, please cue the cock. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music.
So I said I have two Easter eggs for you, and both of them are troubling. This first one, this is from Wu-Tang is for the Children, highlighted in AP story. Put it on the screen here. Louisiana to end mass vaccine promotion, says state's top health official.
No.
Yeah. Oh, and let's go to Utah, where things are even worse. If you can believe, that's bad. Wait till you find out what is happening in Utah. Nazi flags can fly in Utah schools, but not pride flags. Republican lawmaker says.
What the fuck?
A new bill would allow for Nazi and Confederate flags to be displayed in some instances in Utah schools and government buildings, but pride flags would be banned.
Oh, hell no.
We're well on the way. They are well on the way to Nazi Germany. It is 1933 all over again in the United States of America.
Oh, my God.
I'm telling you, this shit is real. It's happening in real time right in front of us.
God. All right.
And I'm gonna give you. I'm gonna put a link to the bill in the chat. Anybody wants to have a look at it. It's 1933. You know, time zones are weird. In Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, it is about 13 minutes to 10 a.m. In London, England, it's 6 hours ahead. And in the United States of America, Washington, D.C., to be specific, which is in the same time zone as Canada, it's 1933 Germany.
Jeez. Unbelievable.
I can't.
Right. I can't end on that. No, I can't end on that note because
No, that's fine. But I needed to highlight those two things.
No,
they needed to be highlighted.
It's a day for love. So I'm going to share with you what I got for my sweetie before he even knows. So please, keep it a secret. I found the perfect thing the other day. Look at that.
Is that a rose under glass?
It's a forever rose. They found a way to get rose and treat it that it would last forever. So he's got his own Beauty and the Beast rose now.
Cool. Very cool. There you go.
And this one, the petals won't fall off. So it means it will last forever. I'm such a romantic. I'm such a softie. Oh my God. Okay, kids and cubs. It's a day for love. It's a day for love, right? It's a weekend for love. And we have Flag Day on the 15th. Show love for Canada. We've got Family Day on the 17th. Show love for your family. Show love for the damn fam. Just tune the orange fucker out. Focus on love.
For the weekend. And it's Family Day here in Ontario on Monday, so it's a long weekend for those who are employed and not working for the federal government.
Mr. Grizzly, was wondering, podcast this weekend or?
Are you in town? No, I can't. We have plans. We have plans tomorrow.
Okay. I was going to be in town because
the Ray girl hooked us up with some tickets to a Tina Turner thing at the NAC.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
It's a matinee show, so we're going tomorrow afternoon to see that. So yeah, I can't do it this weekend. We could probably do it next weekend, but this weekend is out of the question.
All right. If Sunday's an option, it is as well for me.
No, I can't do Sundays.
On Tuesdays, so I'll be in town.
Yeah, I can't do Sundays. I can't.
All right, perfect.
It's too much. It's entirely too much work for me on a Sunday.
No worries. So podcast might be tricky for February because I have a curling bonspiel the following weekend. That will be, but we might do a nights or an evening or something instead.
Yeah,
we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everyone. Happy Valentine.